Whatever, we'll do it live. I know that's not the exact quote, but I don't want to open the show with just blasting you guys with a bunch of F words and everything. But yeah, we're going to do this live. I'm just turning the show on. I don't want to keep everybody waiting. It's been a bit of a hectic day. I was up early. I was making great progress on things, and then all of a sudden, my power went out for like 30 seconds. Wiped out a little bit of my draft that I was working on, so I fell behind on the article. Apologies to anybody who's up on the article, who's up on the site looking at the article and wondering why the last couple of games have kind of scant details. Did a bit of a quick summary so that I could jump on here and get the show started. I'm going to do a quick update on the old model here, drop some of the confirmed lineups in while I talk, while I tee up the old show here. And we got to let everybody trickle into the chat anyway. Looks like we've got a couple folks hanging out already. Let's see who we've got already. We've got Squatch Happens. We've got Stephen B. What's going on, fellas? How you guys doing today? Anybody hit anything last night? I know we didn't have the greatest day overall. We had Corbin Burns obviously went pop on us real quick. That kind of sucked. And then I don't know about you guys, but I had very little Mets. I don't know that I had any Mets, which just absolutely crushed me last night. All the good things that I did were kind of offset by having 0 shares of Francisco Lindor, who had a monster game. We got some of the pitching right. It kind of sucked to have both Andrew Heaney and Pablo Lopez come within and out of a quality start on the FanDuel slate. But hey, that's baseball. That's why we play the games. Back at it today. We've got an interesting slate today. I said I was going to talk while I do the confirmed lineups, and so far I've only talked. So let me actually do that while I talk. But interesting slate. I think we've got a super deep pitching slate. There's 8, 10, even more when we count some of the value guys, like strong pitching options on this one. So I think we've got a lot of places to go. I think we've got a few very interesting spots for offense again. We'll talk about some of the value plays. We'll talk about some of the things that are leading the stacks board. Fortunately, the lousy Rockies aren't showing nearly as much quality as they were showing in some of my projections yesterday. I ended up with a fair amount. I kind of tempered it and didn't get to crazy exposures once I saw that they were actually popular in the public. And I'm curious to see what public projections for ownership look like for the Rockies today in that same spot. I expect the Reds will be super popular, but I'm curious how the Rockies do in popularity today. So we'll look at that. Well, we won't look at that because I don't have it, but I'll look at that later as I do my lineups. But that's going to be a critical game. That game's got a very big total on it, once again, with most of it going toward the Red side of things. Just grabbing some lineups for anybody who's just coming into the chat. Forgive me for not looking into the camera and doing one of these. Stare down the barrel of the camera. Give you guys the eye. Yeah. That's how they do it in Hollywood land. That's exactly what you don't want to do in Hollywood. Anyway, Guardians. Putting the Guardians lineup in here. It's a weird spot. The Guardians are drawing a massive run projection. We'll talk about it, but I'm just looking at this lineup now. They've been so bad this year. And they're going up against Ken Waldichuk, who has also been so bad this year. So it's going to be a fun spot to talk about. They're drawing the biggest projection on highest implied run total, or second highest, behind Cincinnati on the slate here. So weird spot with the Guardians today to dive into. I think I've got all the confirmed lineups. We've got the projected lineups in. I won't worry about updating run totals. Nothing critical is going to really have changed there, I don't think. Hopefully we've got, usually I like to double check, make sure we haven't lost any confirmed starters or anything like that in terms of the pitching, but I'll just take it on faith that we haven't right now. It's a weird day on Sunday. Did you guys play on Sunday when we had those like 4 last minute changes like it was the damn NBA? That crushed me on Sunday. I was still at my parents' house. And my mom was like, what's going on? Why are you like frantically scrambling around? I was like, I got 5 minutes to change out all this shit. Leave me alone. Today's show is brought to you by Cheers, where everybody knows your name. The actual bar looks very different than the TV show. Cool little tourist trap in Boston, though. All right, anyway. I actually got that mug 8 years ago today. Or yesterday. 8 years ago yesterday. And I know that because I was in Boston the day that my niece was born. The one who I keep talking about, whose birthday is today. She woke me up this morning. That was why I was up early, to answer Larry's question. She got a little watch thing that's like a kid let you program in. They can call a couple of their friends. She can like call and text me from her little watch. So I was woken up at 7:30 this morning and spoke to my 8-year-old niece for a full hour as the first thing I did today. So that's why I was up early, but the whole thing went haywire. Bird Nerd, what's going on, buddy? Joker is so far so good. He's sitting kind of quietly taking a nap in front of the desk over here. So we'll see how he does. Po DJ and Stoner's in the chat. Charles Moran's in the chat. What's going on, fellas? Ricky Lee. Lara's in the chat. Calvin Dunn. What's up, everybody? Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a good day. It's 4:07. Let's dive into this slate. We got a lot to talk about. 11 gamer. Not the casual, easy, short slate we had yesterday. So let me fire this up so you guys can stare at something other than my ugly mug. Not that one. Not that one. That one. We've got projections up. Let me wipe out these numbers. Don't need to care about those. We got the value. Not showing any old ownership projections. All right, let's dive in. Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole going up against the Seattle Mariners. I think there's massive upside here. I know that Cole hasn't been himself. 26.4% strikeout rate is way, way down for Garrett Cole. He was a 30-plus percent strikeout rate pitcher over the course of multiple seasons. But he hasn't been ultra bad. In fact, he's been fairly good over the course of the season. He's only allowed 3 or more runs, I think, twice. It's in the article. I'm pulling it back up so that I can use the article as notes. I usually also give myself a quick reread on some of the pitcher facts so that I can try and be a little bit sharper and come off the top of the head. But looking at his overall game log, he's given up 3. Hang on. Cole had 5 runs in back-to-back outings. Totally, he gave up 3 times over 6 starts in May. So he had a flat May. 3 starts with 5 runs allowed. Outside of those 3 mediocre games, he's given up more than 2 earned runs in a game 0 times all season. So he's been 2 runs or fewer in all but 3 of his starts in 15 starts, 91 2/3 innings. The strikeouts are down. We know they're down. There's a bit of a pitch mix issue going on. There's a bit of a loss of whiff rate with some of his breaking stuff going on. I went way too long just digging into Garrett Cole, which also cost me some time. So if you want to take a look at some of those stats, you check out the article. But long story short, we've definitely lost some strikeout talent. But the Mariners are feeding strikeouts to opposing pitchers so far this year. 26.4% strikeout rate for this confirmed lineup. There's definitely some danger of power in Yankee Stadium. You could get the Jared Kelenic home run. You could get not J.P. Crawford necessarily. I've actually got an interesting little home run mark on Mike Ford down the bottom of the lineup there now that I've added him to projections. Did some cleanup work this morning too to get rid of some of these blank spots in the projections with some of these guys I wasn't necessarily expecting to be in the major leagues this year. So we took care of that, getting an interesting little number on him. So oddball guys like him, certainly Teoscar Hernandez, Julio Rodriguez from the top of the lineup from the right side could take Cole deep. It could very well be that weirdo game where Cole gives up the oddball home run, maybe 2 home runs, but they stack up 3 to 4 runs and that's it. Or they scored 2 runs on a home run and then he strikes out 7-8, has a fairly effective game. Or it could be that outing where he has the limited game where the home runs cost him too many, 5 runs. But he doesn't get totally obliterated, so you still don't necessarily want Mariners because they're going to put up a bunch of zeros as he punches hitters out, even though he's being ineffective. So to me, it's a Cole spot. 10-9, 10-6. I get it if people want to go in other directions on a deep slate. What I'm hoping that does is render Cole a little bit under-owned, as a pay-up-to-be different spot. I'm hoping. I don't know what his ownership's going to look like. I expect he's pulling decent projections at the very least around the industry with the idea of some strikeouts here. So we'll see where he lands. At the same time, George Kirby, especially on DK, where Kirby, here's Joker, by the way, here's where Kirby costs just 8,700. I think that's a major source of value against this version of the Yankees lineup. It's Yankee Stadium. Anything could happen. They do still have Giancarlo Stanton. They've got Glaber. They've got Rizzo, who's struggled badly over the last month. They've got Donaldson, who's just selling out for power these days. But there's not a big threat to Kirby if Stanton's not going right in that lineup. He's not a premium strikeout guy. 22% strikeouts for the year. But what I love about Kirby is just the control and the command. 1.9% walk rate. Just finds his ability to pitch through games. Pitches fairly deep into games. 13 starts, 80 2/3 innings. Fairly clean innings. A 3.24 ERA, a 3.48 xFIP. Doesn't allow much power or premium contact. Only 37.7% hard hits. 6.6% barrels, a 2.48% home run rate. So I see a lot of upside for Kirby, especially at that DK price. I think that is a very good source of that mid-level, not SP1 priced, but not quite a value, traditional value, cheapo guy type price. Just a strong play at 8,700. And I think I want to be in business here at 10,000 too. I'll take some shares against my Yankees at 10,000 there with this pitcher, especially if that's another case where it just pushes some of the public away because of a lack of faith in the strikeout upside, because of, there's a bunch of name brand starters in good spots on this slate, including guys who are projecting a little bit better. We've also got just a collection of pitchers between, I think the top projected is Nathan Eovaldi, and then there's 6 or 7 guys that are within 3 fantasy points. Evaldi's at like 36, I think. So like, take these two guys as an example at 32.9, 32.5. FanDuel projections without adding in a win or quality start bonus here, by the way. Sometimes there's a driver for innings pitched that drives up some scores like we've seen that I tend to try and rein in a little bit. I ran an update today for some of that too. So there's some updated stuff in the back end. The model knows a little bit more about some of these pitchers than it did yesterday, which is, it has an impact across the course of things, but nothing changes dramatically because I don't let full stretches in. So if you're rostering bats on this one, we are certainly looking for some of that power potential from the Mariners. So you can go to Julio Rodriguez. You can go to Teoscar Hernandez. I don't love J.P. Crawford. I thought I was going to get into the swing with J.P. Crawford a little bit when they moved him to the leadoff position. He hasn't been great in that role. The on-base dipped by like 20 percentage points. It's still good at 351. He's still involved with a 108 WRC+, but it's kind of come down in quality. He was doing better in that 9th spot, so maybe a trip back to the bottom of the lineup and maybe they move somebody else up there. Jose Caballero could be an interesting candidate for that spot if he played every day. He's got a 385 on-base percentage, a 123 WRC+. He's down the bottom of the lineup hitting 9th, 10 stolen bases, 2 home runs on the season. Not a premium play, but for 2,400, 2,600, if you're building a lot of Mariners stacks, I think it's totally justifiable to maybe offset some J.P. Crawford by using Jose Caballero and just accept that he's going to cost a plate appearance, but you use him as a leadoff hitter in front of Julio. Ty France is in play at 36.29. Good hit tool. Hasn't been as good as he was last year, but getting on base, 121 WRC+, is involved in most of their run scoring over 300 plate appearances. Teoscar, Jared Kelenic, Eugenio Suarez, Cal Raleigh, even Mike Ford. There are excellent contact profiles with the barrel rates here. There are excellent contact profiles with the hard hit rates here. There's some good home run output from some of these guys. So you can definitely go to, that's your power core. If you're rostering Mariners, you don't want to skip those guys entirely, but that's also your strikeout core. All these guys strike out at aggressive clips. Really, it's only Ty France, some J.P. Crawford, and if you want to count Caballero down there at 130 in 135 plate appearances that don't strike out aggressively in this lineup. So that's where we're getting upside from Cole, but that's also where some of the danger for Cole comes in terms of the home runs. I am on Team Garrett Cole, though. If we're going to Yankees, boy, this is a weird Yankees lineup. Jake Bauers is not a leadoff hitter, really. Like, he's 316. I get what they're trying to do. Maybe take the get out early with some power. Guy who can put bat on ball and be productive in that way. He's got a 115 WRC+, but this is not a leadoff hitter over the long term. It's barely a major league hitter over the long term. 5 home runs on the season is good, 117 plate appearances, but 235, 316 on the front end of the triple slash is kind of miscast as a leadoff man. Glaber's probably better in that role, 331 on base, giving a 256 average, but doesn't strike out much, only 12.5% strikeout. So he's at least putting the ball in play, seeing some pitches. Bauers walks 11.1% of the time, but still only gets to a 316 on base because he's striking out 30.8% of the time. Weird choice for the leadoff role, but I know they keep doing it. Stanton, obviously power for days, but really hasn't clicked outside of that one start at Citi Field. Hasn't really connected much since his return to the lineup. Still 6 home runs and 101 plate appearances, a 237 ISO overall, 17.9% barrels, 53.7% hard hits. He is, have I been saying Mike? Or did I say Giancarlo? I think I said Mike twice. I just realized that. I call him Mike still when I'm at Yankee Stadium and I'm like, shouting down to him at the plate where he can't hear me. I just like to call him Mike because he used to be Mike, for the people who don't know that. And I like to yell nicknames for the players. If I've been saying Mike, I assure you I know that his name is Giancarlo Stanton, and that was just a brain slip. Either way, tons and tons of power from that bat. Major home run hitter, one of the best home run hitters, if not the best home run hitter of his generation when healthy. So, yeah, you can get to shares of Stanton for 51.31 across sites. There's definitely upside there. Shannon Lambert says, I haven't heard Mike Stanton in ages yet. It's been a minute. 2015, it might have been earlier than that, Larry. Little bit of a slip, but like I said, I do still actively call him that one in the seats at Yankee Stadium. So I'm going to give myself a bit of a pass there. It's not just because I'm old. Anthony Rizzo, Josh Donaldson. Rizzo's a great player in a bit of a downturn right now, but he'll come roaring back. I think he was banged up a little bit and played through it, and I think maybe he's just still playing a little bit banged up, a little bit hurt, and just trying to cover Judge's absence while he has to, and then maybe he goes onto the IL or something when Judge comes back. assuming Judge makes it back with his toe ouchie. It's not great through the back end. They're getting Harrison Bader back again. I feel like this is the third time they've gotten Harrison Bader back, and then he goes back to the IL real quick. But when he's in the lineup, he's productive. 4,000, 3,000 across sites, 6 home runs, 6 steals, 118 WRC plus. So you can go to Bader, you can go to Billy McKinney at the bottom of the lineup. Trevino's entirely skippable as a defensive catcher. You can throw him in if you're building 30 Yankee stacks. Throw him into a couple of them, but he's not a major piece of the puzzle offensively. And then Volpe's the big question mark. You've got the good with the 9.3% barrels, the 43.5% hard hits. You've got a lot of bad and 30.9% strikeouts, a 189, 264 triple slash, 350 triple slash. He has been by OPS. I wrote about it today. Overall for the season, he's in the bottom handful of players in the league. Let's see. 70 WRC plus for the entire course of the season. Among qualified hitters, 4th worst in the entire league, ahead of only Jose Abreu, Nick Maton, and Alex Call, none of whom we want to go to for DFS. Over the last 30 days, Volpe and Nolan Gorman are the bottom 2 players in the league among qualified hittings with WRC plus marks of 20 and 17 respectively. Those 2 players have been bad over the last month, over the last 30 days. Volpe's got it. Damn it, Joker. Come here. Over here, pal. Go lie down. Volpe's got a 456. LeMahieu's got a 515. And Anthony Rizzo has a 424 when we're looking at OPS marks over the last 30 days. So if we want to talk about this lineup, I know LeMahieu's not playing tonight. But if we want to talk about this lineup in terms of Rizzo's slump and Volpe's entire season, those on-base plus slugging percentages are just tragically bad over the last 30 days. I know 30-day samples don't count that much. I just wanted to put some performance in context in the article. So I do still like the counting stats for Volpe. I like the ability to put bat on ball. If he gets on base, I expect him to steal bases. He's just not doing it frequently enough. There are some problems here. I think he would benefit from going back to AAA for a little bit of seasoning, but they seem to not want to do that with him. So he's here. He can be in lineups, but, moderate interest at best, and I think expectations need to be properly set for the idea that he's going to give you zeros on a lot of nights, or 3s and 6s on a lot of nights. FanDuel scoring, not a question mark on value there. So for me, pitching, some bats on both sides. So it's 4 corners, lighter on the bats, more interest in the pitchers on both sides of this one. I'll have fairly significant amount of both of these pitchers. Significant to the, if Cole is, 8% projected for ownership, I'll double that. If Kirby's 5%, I'll double that. Something along those lines. Cubbies and the Pirates. Let's see, we got lineups. No lineups in this one. Let's see what's going on in the chat. What's the update on Jason Dominguez? Any idea how his hype train has been doing lately? I think he's cooled a little bit. I haven't looked at his numbers recently. There's still a lot of hype. There's still a lot of expectation with the kid. He's a well-ranked prospect for them. Not sure exactly what he's doing in the minors this season, but he's definitely cooled in terms of being like an ultra top type prospect. He's not Ellie De La Cruz. He's not Jackson Churio or one of those guys. He could get to that range. He's still very, very young. But those guys are also very young and doing better than him. So I would trade him for either of those guys. Let's put it that way. Cubbies lineup is in. It's not in on Schmabs yet. We'll see if anything pops up. I don't have access to my pal, the News God. I know I could grab it by probably following Underdog, but that involves going to Twitter, and now I got to change up the way that the model accepts these lineups and how they're cutting the positioning and stuff off. It's just, oh wait. So we'll talk bad pitching every day. Bad pitching every day from who, Chuck? Everybody. There's always. Trey, I'm sure we'll uncover an Aaron Hicks of the day. That was Javi Baez a couple days ago. I don't know if we had one yesterday. I probably badmouthed somebody who did well yesterday, but or maybe it was just the Diamondbacks, who I did say were a good team and in play, or the Mets, who I said were a good team and in play but lower ranked. They both had pretty outrageous games. D-backs chased Corbin in the first inning. That crushed a handful of lineups. So maybe those two teams collectively. But the Diamondbacks have been very good this year. Anyway, let's get into this one. All right. Larry says the Cubbies lineup is right, so that's a plus. So taking a look at this one, I don't really want too much John Oviedo here. I think he's a playable part at 6,200 on DK, but we've got a lot of those guys. He's got a 20.6% strikeout rate, a 4.40 ERA, 4.53 xFIP, over 75 and 2/3 in 14 starts. I just don't think there's enough of a ceiling there, and I think he walks too many, 10.2% walks, and it's not like the run the run numbers have been great. He hasn't allowed a ton of power. He doesn't allow a ton of barrels or launch angle. So he's good at checking the opposing team a little bit more so than he's good at like putting up a big fantasy score. And the Cubbies have enough hitters in this lineup that are very good at drawing walks that I worry about that elevated walk rate a little bit, which is something that I touch on a lot with this Cubs team because they're somewhat limited in the power that they hit for. So thinking in terms of them as just kind of run creators, getting on base, run creator types without significant power upside throughout most of that lineup. And we'll talk about some of the power hitters in a minute against a guy who is kind of lousy for run creation and opportunities, but doesn't give up a ton of power. It kind of fits, but it might not be a great recipe for DFS upside. It might just be a good recipe for the Cubbies to win this game like 5-2. So I don't know that I love this spot. You can see the limitations in power in the home run model. Yeah, Ter, nod at the screen because that's the most effective way to demonstrate that, moron. Anyway, you can see it in the home run model here. They're not getting a ton of power upside. Like Chris Morel, Cody Bellinger against a lot of pitchers would be higher graded than this. Dansby would be a little higher graded, but they haven't hit for a ton of power outside of Morel's ridiculous outburst. 125 plate appearances, 13 home runs, 395 ISO, 165 WRC plus. I know 9 of them came in that first 10 days of his return to action, but he's maintained a decent contact profile, or a good contact profile, decent triple slash in a growing sample. So 4,500, 3,800. He's at least cheap on DK at 4,500. 38 probably about right, but outfield and third base eligibility on FanDuel is a good flexibility option there. So you get power from Morel, you get power from Cody Bellinger, who's returned to the lineup now, 4,700, 3,400. He's cheap on both sites. 7 homers, probably going to be playing for a different team later in the year. Texas seems like a right fit. But what I like about Bellinger's kind of return to form, at least early in the season, was that he had cut strikeouts. Strikeouts had become a problem for him. 27.3% last year, was down to 20.7%. If he's able to maintain this kind of strikeout rate and put bat on ball effectively, I think he'll maintain some good productivity at the plate. He's got a decent ISO, 208 ISO, 110 WRC plus over the course of this season. I just think there's enough to throw, for the Cubs to throw at Oviedo, where I only have moderate interest in them, I think, as a stack overall. But I think there's value here. I think there's run creation ability here. They could string together a bunch of hits, hit one big home run, and end up with 8 to 10 runs, that kind of a game. So there is a bit of DFS upside, especially at price, but it's not one of my top priorities in terms of stacking. On the other side of this one, Marcus Stroman at 89, 10, 3, I think is a pretty good value play on the DK slate at least. 8,900, again, it's not one of those extreme values. He could be a little bit cheaper over there. It would be nice if he was a little bit cheaper because he's not a premium strikeout guy. He's not a high-end option in terms of DFS scoring, but what he's really good at is limiting power, limiting home run upside, 3.2% barrels, 2.1 degree average launch angle, 1.39% home runs, and that's sustained over time for this pitcher. And he's okay. He's a 1 in 5-ish type strikeout guy, up to 21.6% this year, was below 20% last year, above 20% the year before, but hovers right in this general range. But he pitches really deep into games, 91 and 2/3 innings in 15 starts this year, a 1.04 whip, a 2.45 ERA, 3.62 xFIP. Very good, talented pitcher overall who can find DFS upside for us from time to time. The Pirates are better against lefties than they are against righties. Against righties, they drop a little bit in terms of their run creation abilities. So I think there's good upside for the Pirates. And if we're looking at Stroman over the course in terms of depth, he's hit 6 innings 13 out of 15 times in his starts this year. The 2 times he didn't complete the 6th inning were the only 2 times he allowed more than 2 earned runs all season long. So if we're just looking for clean innings and depth, Marcus Stroman is a great answer to that question. You just want him to strike out more or be a little bit cheaper. The FanDuel price is tough, but if we're talking about a guy who has a great shot at getting to a quality start, probably having a good shot at getting to a win, you pile up like a 35-ish point performance on the back of that, maybe he finds a few additional strikeouts, I'm going to have some Marcus Stroman. 10-3 is not a great price. Hopefully that keeps the public away. If he's, a couple percentage points owned, you can gain an advantage over the field by just grabbing a few additional shares. It's not one to get carried away with because he could have that clean game with only 2 or 3 strikeouts that doesn't get you to where you need to be, and he's at a similar price to a lot of those aces. So it wouldn't even be, then there's the gap based on price where you bought a hitter who can contribute, 20 points to the cause there. If you're using the salary that way, if you're getting him at a better price like you are on DK, you can look at it that way. All right, I got his handful of points that was 15 points short of what the other pitcher did, but that guy who used that ace had to use this guy at second base, where I was able to get to this guy in the same stack, and he gave me 25 points, and that guy's guy only got 5, so I come out slightly ahead for the effort. That's the kind of play we're looking for when we roster like an $8,900 value, and we're not really getting that at 10-3 on FanDuel. That's my one hesitation with Stroman. Otherwise, very good spot for a very talented pitcher who's not a prime DFS guy. On the Pirates side with bats, if you want to go there, if they do the Ji-Hwan Bae leadoff spot, he's at least semi-viable on the idea that he could get on base, maybe steal you a bag, maybe provide correlated scoring with Reynolds, McCutchen, and Suwinski here. But these two guys have dipped a little bit in quality over the last month or so. The output has not been significant from either of those hitters. I know that the lines still look pretty good, the 122, 124 WRC plus especially, and I believe in both bats. You can look at the contact profile for Reynolds, but Reynolds has only hit a couple home runs since the end of April. Is eight home runs, 8 stolen bases. He's got a 252 ISO, 142 WRC. So 252 ISO, 142 WRC plus in March and April. That dropped to a 172 ISO and then down to a 97 in May. Wait, this sentence doesn't make any sense. Oh, I'm sorry. In May, it dropped to a 172 ISO and a 97 WRC plus. And then in June so far, he's at a 125 ISO, but the WRC plus went back up because he's gotten on base a little bit better this month. So his WRC plus for June is 127. He's hit 3 home runs since the end of April. So his price has come down a little bit, but his productivity has come down a lot. McCutchen's dipped a little bit. Same thing. Price has come down, in conjunction with it, but it's not great. They haven't been as frisky at the plate in the last couple of games. Suwinski, plenty of power upside. Santana, at least memory of power. Potential for power. 6 home runs on the season. I know he got one the other day, but it hasn't been great. 4.7% barrels, 33.2% hard hits for Carlos Santana. So the switch hitters, on the back end of the career here, you might get a little bit of productivity out of them. I like Brian Hayes. We talked about Henry Davis to great lengths yesterday. He, I think, got 1 hit. I don't know if he scored a run. Looks like he probably scored a run. Productive catcher play still at the min price on DK. It's weird. DK took Bo Naylor, the rookie catcher for the Guardians who's making his debut today, and stuck him in at 2,500, but they left the higher-end player in Henry Davis at the dead minimum, who debuted yesterday. I don't really understand that, but I think there's a ton of value on Henry Davis, even if you wanted to use him as a one-off that's not in a stack, just to stick a potentially productive player at catcher at the dead minimum. It's not a great spot against Stroman. He caps the home run upside. He might keep the rookie off bases completely, but there's stolen base upside if he gets on base. He's got good wheels for a catcher. By the way, he's a big time athlete. He actually debuted in the outfield, not at catcher yesterday. So he's a kid that they might end up in the outfield. He might end up at like first base. There's a couple different spots he might play. For our purposes, though, today he's a DFS. For DFS, he's a catcher. So I think there's a lot of upside there, just in the idea that he might steal a couple bases. He might, he could knock a home run. For the dead minimum on DK, I think you can go there. Marcano, Hedges at the bottom of the lineup. They're kind of meh options. We talked a little bit on the Cubby side of things, but I think, beyond Bellinger and Morel, I like this core of hitters. I've talked about them quite a bit. They've got a lot of contact across at least Suzuki and Swanson. Happ has been better for premium contact in years past. Only 5 home runs for Happ so far this year, a 131 ISO, but still a 117 WRC plus, and gets on base at a 384 clip, which is what I like about all 3 of these hitters. Even if they're not hitting for the usual power that they do, even if they're not stealing the usual bases that they do, Mr. Swanson, 352 on base for Swanson, 350 for Seiya Suzuki, just strong options for correlated scoring if you're getting on base. It's not exactly what you want in your 4, 5, 6 hitters, but you'll take it with this team, and that kind of feeds the engine of what I was talking about before. With this team is very good for sequencing, creating runs, knocking guys in even when they're not hitting the ball over the wall. So I think there's that kind of value up and down this lineup. Mike Tauchman, 2,400, 2,600, as long as he's getting on base at a 417 clip, can absolutely be in my lineups. It's weird. He's a quad A player. He's not really a major leaguer, But if he's doing this, it's fine. Nico's price is down a little bit. Nico's performance is down a little bit. 96 WRC plus, 16 steals is good, 283, 333, 375, a .093 ISO. Nico was a little bit better for us last year, but I think he belongs in Cub stacks if you're going there. They're just a mid-range option, kind of a moderate priority. But they are one of those teams that I would say, if you're going premium team, premium pitcher, need a mid-range stack that's not going to be uber popular, that's affordable, Cubbies are on that list. So I would look at them that way. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You're Gun. What's going on in the chat, buddy? What's going on out there? Good to see you. I appreciate you popping by. Saw some wrestling images from Gun. Looked like he showed up to an arena and didn't have an opponent over the weekend, something like that. Somebody ducked you, Gun? What's going on there? Stephen Leibowitz says no Reynolds for Pittsburgh, so that's another downgrade. Downgrade for Pittsburgh's lineup, despite the bumps that we were just looking at in his recent production. He remains by far their best player. So that's a downgrade for Pittsburgh and potentially a bump for Stroman, minor bump. Chuck says, no, I'm not expecting some of the bad pitchers today. Saying, duh. Yeah, there's always bad pitchers. It's some days you get aces, some days you get good pitchers, or at least like a solid mid-range. You'll always get bad pitchers. There's always a couple clunkers out there. Poor Gun's going to pass out in the heat. Yeah, that was the other tweet I saw from him. Yeah, some praying to God for the air conditioner to keep on working. Gun. Skip the stream. Just wanted to see here shirtless in the AC. Well, that's a mental image everybody wanted. Good stuff, buddy. Welcome. Glad you're here. Who else is in the chat? Shannon. We saw Shannon. So Willie K. Chuck Deuces. Got a good crew in here. I appreciate it, gang. Hit the like button to subscribe. The site is rotoscouts.com. All the content is up there. The last couple games in the breakdown are a little bit short today because I ran out of time, like I was saying. Oddly, my power went out, and it's only like 80-something degrees here. So went out, just zapped out for like a minute, but cost me probably 20 minutes overall, which is important. It was a critical 20 minutes in getting those last two games written before the show. But anyway, let's move on. We got a lot to talk about and not a ton of time to do it. Cards and the Nats. Interesting pitching matchup between a couple of lefties here. Matt Gore has gotten progressively worse as the season has gone on. He started out outrageous, 30+% strikeout rate over the first month. Was excellent. It was, I got it right here, 31.5% strikeout rate with a 3.40 xFIP and a 3.0 ERA in March and April. It dipped slightly to a 28.5% strikeout rate. The xFIP, the ERA went up to 3.56, 4.06 in May. For June, it's a small sample, and I don't love to look at things like this, but I like to when it's providing content. All right, the reason I'm doing it is because we started out really hot with the player in what was a small sample, and then it's progressively gotten worse in a series of now 3 small samples that I'm breaking it down as. But it's kind of an illustration of the player starting out hot and then taking a trajectory back down toward earth. And becoming probably, the overall line of what he'll be. So I just want to use it to illustrate that he's not this good, but he's also probably not this bad. The truth lies somewhere here in the middle. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing is just a bit of a normalization here in June for his overall numbers that we'll end the season with, which will probably be pretty good. And we'll end up showing a pitcher high 3s, low 4s xFIP and ERA, mid 20s strikeout rate, and a nice step forward for the guy. I just think, expectations should be a bit tempered from what he was doing in what looked like a real breakout at the beginning of the season. 19.1% strikeout rate in June, down from the 31.5 in March and April. Smaller sample so far, but that's a big dip. The xFIP is up at 4.34, the ERA is at 4.32, so those numbers align well with one another. I wouldn't be totally shocked to see him settle in around those numbers for the runs, and then like 24, 25% strikeouts. Somewhere in that neighborhood sounds about right for the lefty overall. Good at keeping the ball down, but that's also dipped in terms of he's induced fewer ground balls in each of those months, and he's allowed more fly balls with a fairly aggressive home run to fly ball ratio. So as the fly balls go up, it turns into more home runs. Which has been a bit of a problem for him over the past couple of months. Overall, 3.48% home run rate, 43.1% hard hits, 9.1% barrels. There's some home run upside for the Cards, who we know are a hard-hitting team for all their faults, for everything else that's going on with this squad. We know there's power in the Cards lineup. I think you can draw a few shares of Mackenzie Gore. It's not like he's expensive. 8,000, especially on DK, is another one of those, mid-range type prices. I think he's got enough talent to give us a good start in this spot. It's not like he's never going to have a good start again just because it's June and beyond. So there's plenty of upside. The cards have been spotty at best all year long. You can see how they project in my model. It's only really the top end here that's showing much quality. So you can roster Mackenzie Gore, but I expect more from the Cardinals side of this one. And then Jordan Montgomery, I'm expecting a good game from in this spot. Going up against the Nationals, I know they're better against lefties, but better is very relative to them being a bad team overall. If we actually look at the numbers, by WRC Plus collectively, they are at a 106, which is good. It's above average in terms of being above average run creators, but most of the league is at above average WRC plus marks against lefties. So 106 actually only puts them 16th in baseball. It's not like they're the best team in baseball at creating runs against lefties. They're excellent at avoiding strikeouts. They are fourth best in the league at avoiding strikeouts, but Monty isn't the biggest strikeout pitcher in the world anyway. So I think he just kind of gets what he gets and pitches some clean innings here against a team that has a 140 ISO against lefties that ranks 25th out of 30 teams. It's not like we're talking about them turning into the 27 Yankees against the lefty and just completely sucking against righties. This is still the Nationals lineup. So I think there's tons of upside from Montgomery at in a price-based context. 7,400, 8,800. You can see how well he projects for me here. At those prices, I'm going to have a filthy amount of Montgomery, I think. I'm kind of hoping that he's a little popular so that it tempers my my output, but I don't think he's going to be. So I think we got a good spot there for Montgomery. He'll probably be more popular at the price on DK. That's a great value spot. It might not work. We've seen the Nats be frisky against lefties. We've seen them get to similar archetype lefties as well this season. I don't know if they faced Montgomery. I forgot to check that. Not that I care about individual performances, team versus team, or batter versus pitcher, or anything like that. I just popped into my head that maybe he had faced them. So anyway, I'm going to Montgomery. I'll take minor shares, maybe a couple of Nat stacks, just because I don't want to completely miss the boat if they do get there. If I'm doing that, I'm looking to Lane Thomas, Stone Garrett, Victor Robles. No, Gabriel Ruiz sucks for doing that. Meneses has been, moderately productive in terms of his hit tool and against lefties in terms of his hit tool, but there's been no real power to speak of from Meneses. 44.5% hard hits is good, but only 2 home runs, a .91 ISO on the season. Candelario has been bad against lefties. Garcia's been mediocre at best against lefties. Dom Smith is not good overall. Riley Adams, right-handed bat at catcher, but I would have preferred to have Kiebert. I don't love this Nationals lineup, even if I'm doing it to attack a lefty. It looks pretty limited. They could get there. They could string together some hits, but no real power to speak of outside of Lane Thomas. I don't love this spot. Victor Robles would be interesting to me if I'm rostering Nationals. 2,325, former high-end prospect. Never really arrived at the major league level, but a decent hit tool, lower mid-level type speed, or type power, and good speed. 8 stolen bases in 122 plate appearances this year. Has missed time again with injury, but some potential there, but it's very limited options for me in terms of the national stacks. If I'm going to cards, it's really probably focusing on that top end in this version of the Cards lineup. We talked about Nolan Gorman struggling over the last 30 days badly. That had actually escaped my attention. I knew that he hadn't been pounding home runs at the speed he had been earlier in the year, but I missed that he had been so bad over the last 30 days. I just kind of thought he was riding that wave of productivity that all these cards are, but he's been one of the worst players in the league over the last 30 days, which is not what we expect from a premium power hitter. But those guys do go in, drips and drabs as well. But for the guys who are in the lineup, Edman's easy to play off the top of the lineup at 4,100, 2,800. A lot of quality in him as a leadoff man or as a wraparound play. 99 WRC plus for this season. That's fine. I don't care that it's a point below average. 7 home runs, 12 stolen bases. When he's leading off, you like him a lot, but he gets a little bit more attention. I actually prefer him as a wraparound from the 9 spot in the lineup because he gets a little bit less popularity there. But I'm not going to sweat it. I doubt they'll be extremely popular in this spot. Goldschmidt, Arenado, you're getting tons of veteran quality, tons of power, tons of run creation ability. Arenado turned his season around after a really bad March and April, is up to 15 home runs, a 120 WRC plus. He's fully back. I'm not worried about a downturn there. He'll finish the season with his typical type numbers. Goldschmidt having an incredible year, just being the excellent player that he is year in, year out. Contreras, bad season so far, but hitting cleanup for 4,300, 2,700. There's value there. 10.4% barrel rate, 43.9% hard hit rate. You can focus on the premium contact and kind of ignore the triple slash. Maybe we're just home run hunting, but at least a value catcher play on DK. Jordan Walker, Dylan Carlson, DeYoung, Kneisner, and Brendan Donovan, all kind of mix and match bolt-on types from later in the lineup. There's a lot of low prices here, though. On FanDuel, the entire team is at below a $3,000 average salary. Goldschmidt, the most expensive at $3,700. Arenado at $3,200. That's a good value play against Mackenzie Gore here. So I'll probably get overweight to cards again, for better or for worse. I have a lot this year. So, yeah, that's where we're at with this one, gang. Anybody see this one differently? Anybody going to a lot of Nationals out there in the chat? Gore's one of those guys you can get blown up 3 games in a row, then strike out 12 and give up no runs. Totally agree, Chuck. Josh Plays DFS says he had a good productive night last night with the articles and charts. That's awesome. Congrats, buddy. I appreciate you mentioning that. Makes me feel better about my night last night, which didn't go as well, but I'm glad you had a good night. That's awesome. Congrats. Gore did the same thing last year before he got hurt. Started off strong, fizzled after. Yeah, it's a developing pitcher. They come in, they become bits of roller coasters. But I believe in the talent. I think the getting the ground balls is critical for him. Let's move on from this one. So this one, I'll take some shares of Gore. It's a good price. There's enough talent there at the values. I'll definitely be taking shares of Montgomery. I'm hoping to either be pushed off shares by an extremely high ownership number or get my fair shares against a very low public ownership number. And it'll probably land exactly in the middle, which will piss me off. And I'll be right with the field. Chuck, yeah, I usually do play a couple shares of Washington, and I'm trying to come around to doing a little bit more. But it's a big slate. It's a good lefty on the hill, and it's not the best version of that lineup, in my opinion. So I don't know that I'll be doing it that much, but I don't want to fully miss the boat. Like if I have 5 lineups with Nats best team, Nats second best team, Nats third best team, Nats fourth best team, something like that as a set of 5, that could be appealing a little bit. So we'll see. It all depends on how it comes together. But they're not going to be a high priority for me. They're not going to come up a ton when I run my process, just for how they project and where they're at. But I'll have to force some in because I do want a little bit. So this one, it's Monty, Gore, Cards, Nats, if we're going in order. Let's pick up a little speed. Interesting spot for Aaron Savali. Another cheap pitcher, 7,900, 8,400, a guy with enough talent and another guy with the ability to just put up clean innings for price. I think there's enough of an offset between the price on FanDuel that, compared to the $10,000 guys, with the way he projects against this weak-ass Athletics lineup, I'm going to have some shares of Savali for price. I think that buys you a full, $2,000 upgrade from a cheap hitter to a very high-priced hitter, if you want to use it that way. Or it could buy you 2 bats if you're going, $1,000 each for the $2,000 that you're saving with Savali against, as opposed to like a Garrett Cole or one of those guys. So he's not my favorite pitcher on the slate by any means, but for the price, I think there's a good amount of value there. So Monty and Savali are both going to be in my plans, probably fairly aggressively here. I just like attacking this Athletics lineup. I like attacking that Nationals lineup. It comes up a lot for me. It projects strongly for me the way that my model works. So I just think there's talent here. I think there's upside here. 2.67 ERA is definitely worse than a 4.40 xFIP, but Savali limits power, premium contact, 4.9% barrels in a very small sample this year, 34.6% hard hits, a 4.40 xFIP, only 19.5% strikeouts. I think there's additional upside for strikeouts. There's plenty of Ks through the heart of this order. Right? 33, 28, 34, 25, 30.3. Couple low-end guys. Tony Kemp, 11.8% strikeouts to help the average. Fine. Non-threatening hitter. 17.1% for Estuary. Non-threatening hitter until he reaches first base and then steals second and third, and all of a sudden he's over here now. But, 36 stolen bases is nice, but needs to get on base a little bit more regularly, in my opinion. But he's at least limiting the strikeouts, but the 3.8% walk rate kind of offsets that. So I think Savali's got upside here. I like going to that spot. I won't have many Athletics. Some maybe trickling around the edges just because of where they're priced. Decent projections on those top 4 guys. Brent Rooker's come back around the back end of being terrible, where his WRC plus has ticked up a little bit this month, and he's now at an affordable price on all sites. So he's kind of steering back into maybe there's a little bit of value there for Brent Rooker. I still don't believe at all in the production, the talent, or anything like that. He had 11 home runs on May 12th. He's got 13 today on June 20th. So that's the kind of guy we're getting here. The strikeouts are still aggressively bad, but at price at 3,100 in this spot, I think there's certainly a little bit of power-based upside there. Seth Brown, similar idea, definitely a power and speed option. Not having a good year, over 124 plate appearances, but dealt with an injury, missed a lot of time, and he's an effective bat. He's actually a bat that I believe in a lot more than Brent Rooker, and he hits from the left side of the plate going up against Savali here. Only 2,500, 2,700 in his 124 plate appearances, despite the sub-Mendoza average, the 266 on base. At least we've gotten 4 home runs. At least we've gotten an 11.4% barrel rate, 52.9% hard hits. So you can go to some of the top end of the A's. What's tragic about the A's lineup is just how badly it falls off with some of this. And then Langoliers isn't a guy who's going to turn a lineup over for you by any means. 205 average, 277 on base, but at least he hits for a little bit of pop. 8 home runs is a very low-end catcher, very low-owned catcher. 2,200, 2,600, 10.3% barrel rate. Langoliers at least knows how to turn on a pitch. So we get that out of the bottom spot there. The Guardians are going up against Ken Waldichuk. This is the spot that I talked about at the top of the show that is going to be confounding today. I want to see where the Guardians are projected for ownership. If anybody wants to give me a hint in the chat, I'll take the hint because I'm super curious. I'm hoping that they're super, super popular so that I can say, all right, I'll grab some, but not get carried away with it against a bad pitcher in a great spot, but with a team that I think across the board has been pretty bad this year and has dramatically underperformed expectations. Even if you didn't want to insult them by saying that they're just completely atrocious this season, you can at least, I think, it's fair to say that they've dramatically underperformed. So I do think you need to get some Cleveland across a full portfolio of 150 lineups, but assuming that they're going to be super popular at these prices with a 5+ run total, one of only 2 5+ run totals on the board when I looked earlier in the day in Vegas, there's definite reason to go to the Guardians here. They're going up against Waldichuk, who has a 19.2% strikeout rate in 59 2/3, a 5.44 xFIP, a 6.64 ERA, a 4.81% home run rate. There are clear-cut reasons to attack this guy. He's also walking 13.4%. He's been a little bit more effective in the bullpen since they moved him into this role. I wouldn't roster Waldichuk because I don't know how many innings we're getting out of him. But it's just, I don't know. I don't trust this Guardians team right now. It was a team I came into the year thinking they were going to be productive, thinking they were going to be a very good, kind of like what I said with the Cubs. Maybe not hitting a ton of home runs, but a lot of guys with a history of getting on base, low strikeout rates, mid-range power at least, and a ton of stolen bases. So far this year, all we're getting is the good strikeout rate. So it's been pretty bad for the Guardians. You've got Jose, you've got Josh. Those are your 2 premium bats in the lineup this year. Josh Naylor has had a nice little turnaround. He was bad in March and April. Disappointed a lot of us who drafted him in 30 different leagues as a late round pick. I only cut him in like 1 or 2 though, so I've still got him on most of those teams. But he's turned around nicely. 288, 331, 450, 110 WRC plus, 8 home runs on the season. Is it Medina coming out behind him? All right, I hadn't seen who it was. I knew that's why I was saying his innings are going to be a little bit limited. They had used him as a bulk reliever. Now they've got him as like a non-traditional opener. I expect still like 3 innings per Waldichuk probably. I think he went to a couple innings the other day though. What was that? The 17th, I think it was, if I'm remembering correctly. So that's why I kind of skipped over any potential interest in Waldichuk. In addition to him being bad, I hadn't seen that it's Medina coming after him yet. That's another major target. He's given up a massive amount of power. Here, wait, we'll do this. Check this out. Bang. Luis Medina, 5,000 on the DK slate, 5,900 on the FanDuel slate. Totally out of play. 7.55 ERA, 4.58 xFIP. Coming into the bullpen with no shot at a quality start. Probably no shot at a win. 10.2% walk, 4.58 xFIP. Giving up 90.3 miles an hour average exit velo, 9.1% barrel rate, 5.68% home run rate. He's been worse than Waldichuk has. Fire away with Guardians bats. It's probably the right move. I just don't like how this team has been and what they've been doing this year. So, yeah, we're going there, but I'm hoping that the field goes there a lot more aggressively so that I can temper it down, go to any of the 22 other teams on the slate here. Yeah, Waldichuk's been limited. He was coming out in bulk relief. and I think he went 3 just on Friday. Was it Friday? Anyway, I wrote more details about it in the article here. Acting as an opener with the possibility of 2 to 3 innings tonight. He threw 2 innings on the 17th, not 3 innings. So full start's out of the question is how I put it. Lefties facing a Cleveland roster that ranks 3rd from the bottom with an 86 WRC plus against lefties this year, but they only have a 16.7% strikeout rate against lefties this year. So there's 0 upside for the lefty in the first couple of innings. Then they get Medina, the righty. They're not a team that's going to switch up their lineup very much when they switch up handedness on the pitcher. They're just whatever they have in there is going to be who faces everybody. They have a 125 ISO against lefties, a little bit better against righties, I think, but they're just not good this year. He's not been good. Waldichuk, Medina's not been good, but it makes me uncomfortable if I'm getting to a ton of chalky Guardians. If they somehow are not that popular across the industry, I'll have a lot. Don't get me wrong. It's a good spot. It's just been a bad underperforming team. The only guys hitting for any kind of power are Ramirez and Josh Naylor. Josh Bell's been really disappointing, but he's cheap. So you're getting a decent contact profile at the very least with Bell. 8.1% barrels, 40.1% hard hits. That's not great. It's not, any crazy runaway numbers. It's average, but it's good for 2,600, 2,700 from a guy who hit 17 homers last year, 27 the year before. Andres Jimenez, Ahmed Rosario, both guys who I thought were going to be right in what I was saying about this team. Good, mid threes type on base. 20 plus steals, 15 plus home runs from both of those guys. Good middle infield tandem. Has not materialized this year. They were along those lines last year. Hasn't materialized. Brendan Straw at the bottom of the lineup. Meh. For DFS value. Meh. Bo Naylor. I guess he has 7 plate appearances. I didn't realize. Bo Naylor back in the lineup. I guess I thought it was his debut, but it's not. But 2,500 on the DK slate. Dead minimum price on FanDuel. If you're going to a bunch of Guardians, I definitely don't think you skip him because he's got a decent profile as a prospect. He's a power guy. He's a raw power guy. Most projection systems have him settled in to like the mid-teens, like the 15 home run range, which as a catcher is decent home run value, decent upside. He's Josh Naylor's brother. Josh has a little bit more power potential for him, but I don't think it's a totally unreasonable comp to expect maybe a couple times in his career the kid cracks 20 home runs. Lefty bat, 2,500 dead minimum on FanDuel. I think you can go to Naylor a few times over and probably more than the field if the Guardians are popular. If you're going to a bunch of Guardians, Naylor is probably my favorite way to differentiate some of those stacks, particularly on FanDuel, where people aren't going to be thinking about rookie catchers as much, especially not in the 9th spot in the lineup. He's not a traditional wraparound type of a guy, but maybe if you go like Ramirez, Josh, Naylor, that's a bit of a gap. It's not that bad. I don't really care that much about gaps for anybody who wonders that about setting optimizers. I don't really care. Like 3 hitters, he could still easily, drive these guys in. So it's not like these guys will totally take the ability to correlate away from him. But maybe it's more like, Ramirez, Naylor, Jimenez, and Bo. You note that I'm kind of skipping over Brennan and Straw here. I don't really love those players. Brennan's fine. 271, 304, 398, 92 WRC plus, but 4 home runs, 6 steals. He could get you there at 2,325. I don't want to totally discount him. So it's just underperforming, lousy team going up against lousy pitching. That's really what we're looking for here. So I expect it's going to be very highly owned. Let's move on. I expect this one is going to be pretty highly owned, at least on one side of it. That's going to be the Reds going up against Noah Davis. Davis, sure, yeah, the 1.82% home run rate. Probably not real. 6.17 ERA and 3.98 xFIP, 21.8% strikeouts in his 11 2/3 innings. Not a prospect really to speak of. He's 26. He was pitching in AAA earlier this year. 7 starts, 25 2/3 innings in AAA this year. 17.7% strikeout rate. A 7.09 xFIP. Not ERA, xFIP. That's not a good pitcher. AAA this season. Fire away with Reds bats. We can definitely target Noah Davis. I'd be more enthusiastic about the Reds at high ownership than I would about the Guardians at high ownership. Maybe it's just because they're fun. Maybe it's just because they're the buzzy team and exciting and there's some cheap guys in here with a lot of talent. I think it's just because they're a better team. I really do think that I don't think they're quite good yet. I know they're in first place now, but I don't think they're quite good, but I think they're definitely the better team than the Guardians right now. There's a lot of talent up and down this lineup now. They come at good prices. So I want to get invested in some Reds. I'll have minor shares of the Rockies. Minor shares, because I actually think there's good value in Ben Lively today. 7,100, 8,000. Very good prices for a guy who's pitching pretty well. 23.3% strikeout rate, only 5.1% walks, over 42 innings in 6 starts. He's been pitching with depth. He's been pitching for quality. He's given up a little bit in terms of the barrels, the home runs, the premium contact, but it's a small sample in 42 innings. So I think that, either that normalizes and the effectiveness comes through even more, or this normalizes and he becomes this bad. It's one or the other. So I don't fully believe in the pitcher. There's a reason he's pitched on multiple continents over the past few years. There's a reason we don't have the last 2 years worth of samples for him here, because he hasn't pitched in North America in the last 2 years. But I think there's enough value there in what he's done so far in his return to action here in the States that against this shitty Rockies lineup, we can definitely go there at 7,100, 8,000. I kind of hope Lively sneaks under the radar on a very deep pitching slate, and I can get shares of him as a mid-range option, as a strong value option on the DK slate. There's strikeouts galore in this lineup. Confirm Rockies lineup, 29.6% strikeout rate. Sign me up for some Ben Lively. So we're looking at some of the Reds hitters against Davis. Confirm lineup, TJ Friedel, Matt McClain. This is basically what it looked like when I wrote the article today. So we've got Friedel up at the top for 42.29. He's having a productive year, 8 stolen bases, 3 home runs in 194 plate appearances, and a good stick, good ability to get on base and give you correlated scoring with your more expensive guys. So he offsets a little bit of price, probably helps offset some popularity, doesn't strike out, and provides an option to score some runs when Matt McClain doubles or homers, when Jonathan India hits his home run for the day, which was my Reds home run pick of the day, when Ellie triples 3 times, strikes out 5 times, doubles once, makes an amazing defensive play, steals first base, and does whatever other amazing things you've never seen on a baseball field before all in 3 plate appearances somehow. Whatever Ellie does is going to be a big part of the equation here. 5,300, 3,900, third base and shortstop eligible. Just a dynamite option in the heart of this lineup. It's still not expensive enough on the DK slate. 39 is probably about right. Well, I shouldn't say that. He is expensive. He's the most expensive player on this team on the DK slate as a brand new rookie over 54 plate appearances. I think he'll settle in a little bit higher than that, I think is what I was trying to say. There are definitely warts. 33% strikeouts he's got to get under control, but he offsets it by walking 11% of the time, all the speed that he provides in the lineup. So love Ellie. He'll be super popular in this spot, I'm certain. Jake Fraley, Joey Votto, a couple of lefties with some power. Votto homered in his return to action last night, drove in 3. If you guys didn't see it, it's linked in the red section of my article here. If you didn't see his Instagram post, or I assume you also just know how to pull up Instagram on your phone. Before the game yesterday, Votto did like a wrestler entrance where he's all decked out in like this red suit with like a cane, just Clown Prince of Baseball, Joey Votto. Nice to see him back in our lives. 4,200, 2,600. I am a big Joey Votto fan. I make no apologies for it. So I'll go here. It was nice to see him get out to a hot start with the homer last night. I feel like I might have undersold him a little bit yesterday when I was talking about him. I was trying to dash through this lineup that I figured would be super popular. I like Joey Votto quite a bit. So 6.20 in the home run model. It's not like he's crashing through the top of my projections or anything, don't get me wrong, but I will definitely work him into some red stacks. The guy I'm actually maybe a little even more interested in is pushing down a spot in the lineup, Spencer Steer. Gonna potentially lose some plate appearances over time to Votto's return, but right now in the lineup alongside Votto, 46-33 will get less attention because he's pushed down, because guys will be looking to put Votto in, Fraley in, Ellie, these guys in. I think Spencer Steer slips by the public a little bit, and over the course of this season, creating runs 21% better than average, a 197 ISO, 10 home runs, 7 stolen bases, 278, 362, 475. Triple slash was a little bit better on the front ends, 2 weeks ago, but a 278 average is fine, and 362 on base is great. I will take shares of Spencer Steer if he's one of my guys that can help offset the popularity of other guys in this lineup in combinations. That's a good buy at the bottom of this lineup. Will Benson, Kirk Casale, take him or leave him. No major tragedy either way there. If you're looking to the Rockies, it's a lower end spot. We've talked about him quite a bit. Do I need to talk about Jurickson Profar? I'm looking forward to when I no longer have to. This is how I put it in the article today. 3,400, 2,800. Back at the top of the lineup once again. It's that old cliche that Albert Einstein definitely didn't say about the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Might not be insane, but it's definitely a bad way to manage a baseball team. Nolan Jones, much better player. 4,000, 3,400. I love him hitting second here. Good lefty bat to get out of the gate in the first inning against Lively. If Lively's day gets ruined, it could be in the first inning by these two hitters. There's a good amount of lefty power there. 14.6% barrels, 41.7% hard hits in the 89 plate appearance sample for Nolan Jones. 321, 404, 551, 231 ISO, 44% better than average in the small sample. Ryan McMahon, 13.7% barrels, pushing a 50% hard hit rate. 12 homers to lead the team on the season, 235 ISO. We know he's better against righties. So the Jones-McMahon part, I'm maybe interested in if I'm going to this team. I don't need to throw Mike Moustakas into that mix. I get it if somebody wants to. The memory of once upon a time lefty power. The ballpark plays a little bit in his favor here. 4 home runs on the season. I get it, but it's not great. He hasn't been that guy in kind of a while. It's fine for price. Like, he's priced appropriately to not being that guy that might be lingering in some people's memory and not others. So you can go there, but I just don't expect a ton of upside. So really the focus for me is on, like, I didn't mean to include Profar there, like these 3 hitters, and then maybe I get some value out of Jorge Alfaro. Which, to say that I'm not interested in Moustakas and then say that I am interested in Alfaro sounds weird. For me, Alfaro on the FanDuel slate is a dead minimum price play. We saw him come through a little bit after we talked about him yesterday with a decent, not outstanding game, but I think he got that kind of upside with the idea of a home run, decent little home run projection. 3,100 on DK, you can take him or leave him as a catcher play. Harold Castro, Brenton Doyle, maybe a little bit more focus as your value guys on that slate. And they're in play on FanDuel as well. Triple position eligibility for Harold Castro. Doyle, decent output so far, 4 home runs, 10 stolen bases. Only a 54 WRC plus is kind of disappointing, but you like the pop, you like the speed from a rookie, only over 147 plate appearances. Coco Montes, only 22 plate appearances so far. Jury's out on what he'll be at second base. Not a priority play, not a priority prospect, but he's cheap at least. So if we're ranking, if we're looking at the corners, I'm saying probably Reds bats as my top priority, then Lively, then Rockies bats, and then we just ignore Noah Davis completely or just throw stuff at him and call him a target. That's what I'm doing here. So Reds bats all day. Red Sox, Minnesota Twins. Another interesting value spot for pitching. Less so on the Ober side. I think Ober is at best appropriately priced, if not potentially a little bit overpriced at 92, 96. He's a talented enough guy. He's a guy I've liked in spots all, over time. RC player has Moose Revenge. I hadn't thought about that. I guess, yeah, sure. Narrative. I'm not a narrative guy, but maybe he's a little bit angry if he remembers playing there. But there is that notion of familiarity and all those things. It's not something I get caught up in. I like to focus on things that we can quantify, things that I can put, all right, if this minus this divided by that or whatever I do with these numbers, if it makes sense, like logically, and if I'm not making anything up in there, like, all right, I guess I'll say 10% downgrade because of this this bad luck factor or, because he saw a black cat today or whatever the case is. I like things I can quantify is the point. Maybe that's in there, but I can't quantify it. So I'm not going to touch on it too much. See what else is going on. Stephen Leibowitz says Nolan Jones can hit baseballs very hard. Yeah, totally agree. Wish they had kept him up all season instead of signing Profar. I've talked about this before, but I signed him only for like $1 as a keeper this season, and then had to cut him, but eat the salary on that dynasty team this year. Seems nerdy. Of course it's nerdy. Nerdy is what I do. Nerdy is why we're here. Nerdy is why we're hitting that like button, hitting the subscribe button to make sure that we're here for all the nerdiness every time the nerdiness goes live. Do we have Twins or Red Sox lineups? We do not. It's 5 o'clock already. Holy shit. All right. We gotta hit the gas pedal a little bit here. We've been wasting time. All right. So Cutter Crawford, I think there's value here. 5,400, 5,600. I don't know what kind of depth of innings we're getting. That's my only concern. He doesn't pitch deep into ball games. But if we get 3-4 innings with some strikeout upside against a Twins projected lineup that has a 30% strikeout rate, using a kid who's got a 24.6% strikeout rate in his 40 2/3 innings over 5 starts, that aligns fairly well at these prices in my head. Even if we get on DK, 4 innings and a handful of strikeouts, 5,400, that probably gets paid off. 56 on FanDuel, if you're not chasing the quality start, you get, that dings you on FanDuel overall. But if I can get 25 points out of him at 5,600 and just not even worry about the quality start, that might buy me several bats. That's 5,000 and change less expensive than the Garrett Coles, than the Framber Valdez's of the world. I certainly like those guys way better. But there might be some value here for Cutter Crawford. I definitely would grab a few head shares of some of the top end of the Twins, some of these lefties, some Joey Gallo, some Max Kepler, obviously some Byron Buxton, some Alex Kirilloff, some Eduardo Julian, some Carlos Correa. There's a lot of bats in there with plenty of power, but just look at all these strikeouts. That is an aggressive team at the plate. And they don't really see significant returns for it. That's the funny part. It's not like they're the Braves with 7 guys in this lineup that have double-digit home run totals. There's 2 guys in that lineup that have double-digit home runs this year, and not a total lack of sample size. I know there's a lot of guys still in the hundreds for plate appearances, but we're not dealing with a massive amount of home runs in this lineup, which is the very weird part for how much they aggressively swing. So you go to minor shares of hedge stacks of Twins. I think there's value in Cutter Crawford. You can go to Bailey Ober. I skipped over finishing that off. I just think he's appropriately priced at 9,200, 9,600 on a smaller slate with fewer premium pitchers. I think there's an argument to be made there. We just saw Pablo Lopez put up a good, not great start against this team. I think you can get similar upside out of Bailey Ober with a handful of strikeouts. Maybe he gets to that quality start point that Pablo didn't reach. I just think the price is wrong for what we're trying to do today. So could he give you value? Yes. Could he give you a good mid-range start? Yes. Is he a top priority against those other starters at either value prices or higher prices? I don't think so. I think he's just kind of an also-ran, and I wouldn't be surprised if I ended up with 0 shares of Bailey Ober today. I'll hopefully grab one or two. I'll hopefully grab a handful, but it's not great. If I'm looking at Red Sox, I kind of like the top end, assuming this is how the lineup comes out. They're super top-heavy, though. For me, the Red Sox play 1 through 5, plus Tristan Casas. These 3 spots are kind of dead spots. Arroyo, McGuire, Reyes, or whatever else lands in those spots. It's not great. If it's Jarren Duran, he's a little bit more popular. I don't know why he's not in the projected here. But Verdugo, obviously, premium leadoff hitter, 130 WRC plus on the season. Yoshida, 132 WRC plus on the season. Decent pop, good hit tool. Only strikes out 10.9% of the time. Guy just puts the ball in play all the time. I kind of think he should be hitting here, and maybe Turner should be hitting here so they get a little bit more productivity out of his on base. Not that Turner's bad at getting on base, but I think Yoshida is just a better option at 2 with Turner 5. So you'd like to see that. That would be a bit of a bump to Yoshida. I don't think Turner drops to 5. It's probably a situation where they would hit Yoshida 2nd, Turner 3rd, Devers 4th, Duvall 5th, which is fine. Any combination of those hitters is acceptable here. The prices are all about right. Devers is a little bit cheap at 3,900, maybe 200, 300 cheap. But he hasn't been great in terms of the hit tool, the run creation this year. 108 WRC plus, above average, but not Devers level above average. 17 home runs is fine. The contact profile is great. There's nothing to really be concerned about with Devers here. I think it's just a little bit of a downswing. He'll come roaring back at some point. Casas hit us a home run yesterday. 2,800, 2,500 at first base. There's value there. Decent contact profile, which is one of the focuses. 12.9% barrels, 45.7% hard hits. Some positive signs from Tristan Casas. 25.9% strikeouts is not great, but it's not 35% strikeouts, 33% strikeouts. So it's okay. And if he's walking 15.5% of the time, that's downright acceptable at worst. I don't want to say good because the 25.9% strikeout rate is never good. But if he's walking that much, that's totally acceptable. The hit tool needs to come around. The on base is essentially there at 335. Needs to improve the slugging percentage, get the results in line, but I think it's coming around for Casas, and he's still very cheap. So I think we can go to some Tristan Casas there. I think he's going to have a nice second half. Bottom other guys, not really interested in. We'll see what comes out as the final lineup. If Connor Wong's in there, that's another another good contact profile focused catcher that you can use for cheap if it's Connor Wong instead of Reese McGuire. And if Jarren Duran, assuming Jarren Duran's healthy, I don't know why he's not in this projected. But if Jarren Duran's in there, he's another player you can use. So this one was, maybe some Cutter Crawford value at these extreme low dart throw type prices, assuming very few innings. So, keep that in mind when you're using that play. Don't get carried away with it. And it could just be 3 innings and done. Waterloo, sometimes I'm searching for what to say next, and my eyes land on something, and it just comes out of my mouth. I was looking at the word Twins, and then my eyes jumped down to the name of Waterloo, and then it just popped out there. The Twins side of things, you're rostering some of those bats, some of that lefty power against Cutter Crawford certainly could be in play here. Some shares of Bailey Ober. It's kind of a weird mix and match game where I just want some little drips and drabs of everything maybe, or I'd be okay, I think, with getting nothing. If I had to say a priority, it's probably the top of the Red Sox lineup, I think. What does the stack board say? I know I said I had to hit the gas pedal, and now I'm spending too much time on a game that I don't really like. But yeah, Bo Sox just land in the middle of the stacks board, 11th by projection, 12th by FanDuel value, 18th by DK value. Home runs are good, 5th ranked home run. Minnesota, similar, 13, 11, 11, 3. So home runs on both sides. But it might be one of those games where you get a couple of home runs. It's a 4-3 ball game. Moderate quality on both sides, but no standout pitcher. It's a skippable ball game. It could go off in any direction. I'm not saying it's definitely skippable. I'm not saying take it out of your player pool. Understand I put things weird ways sometimes. So I think everybody will catch up, or probably already knows what I mean when I say that. Skippable in terms of lower priority. It's okay if I don't get any. I don't want to try to not get any of this game, but if I don't get any, it's not a tragedy for my night. Make sense? Let's move on. You guys are smart guys. I'm sure that made sense. And gals. I'm sure there's a couple gals out in the crowd. I know Melissa's found her way into our chat. I'm not sure if she's here hanging out for the show today, but no, she's coming into the New York area at the end of the week and catching a Yankee game, seeing the Yanks play the Rangers on Friday night. So that'll be a big trip for her, our pal Melissa. Well, I'm glad found her way over here. Good people. So Melissa, if you're in the chat, welcome. Everybody else who's in the chat, welcome. Good to see y'all. Let me jump over. We're going to do this real quick. 4-prong dinger, baseball nerd here. Baseball nerd here too, buddy. 60 people watching. Love it. Hit the like button, the subscribe button, all those good things. We had 100 plus views yesterday. What's that? Probably like 10% of what the views were across town, which after a couple of weeks, hey, that ain't so bad. One guy. I'll take that. Pretty happy about it. Love the love that you guys are showing me. Love to love you, baby. And you guys do not need to hear me sing. Love the love that you guys are showing me. Hit the like button. Really appreciate it. All the views, all the follows. Follow the Twitter handle, at rotoscouts. They're up over there at rotoscouts.com, or at rotoscouts rather, on Twitter. At digitalbeat21 is my personal one. I tend to send links out on both. But at rotoscouts is the official one for the site. So maybe one day that'll take over a little bit more. Right now, everything's on both. And there's basically nothing that goes out on my Twitter handle. Po DJen says I'm doing great. I appreciate that, pal. I appreciate you coming out and hanging out with us every day. Did I see Wembayana is throwing out the first pitch at Yankee Stadium? Is it really? That'll be interesting. I didn't see. Yeah, Larry, no singing at all. Yeah, I promise. I'm not going to ever do that to you again. I didn't see that, Larry. That'll be interesting to watch. His 7'4". Is he actually throwing it, or is he just going to reach out and place it in the catcher's glove from the mound? That's what I want to know. Jason says he overdid it with Ohtani, Betts, and Tatis. Can we make me feel better about my guys tonight? I have no issues with any of those guys. Ohtani, Betts, and Tatis, I would be happy to be overweight on any of those guys. No issues there. Ohtani going up against Kershaw. We'll get to all those spots. Ohtani going up against Kershaw, probably my least favorite of those options, just because I love me some Clay Kershaw, same-handed matchup. It doesn't really matter for Ohtani. He's just a stud against anybody. But if you're going to say anybody in the world is going to be capable of shutting down Ohtani 3 times, Clayton Kershaw's high up on my list. I'll say that much. Mookie on the other side of that one going up against Detmer is certainly more upside for the Dodgers against Detmers than there are for the Angels against Kershaw. But it's kind of flat on both sides offensively. Good pitchers on both sides. But yeah, I think I would rank that, if I'm doing it, probably Tatis, Mookie, Ohtani, if I'm saying those 3 guys. But no issues with any of those guys. They're stars. I don't care. Those are guys I don't care how highly they're owned. I'll just take their points when they go out and have those monster games because I need them. If they put up a 40-point game and none of these scrubs that I roster from the 8 and the 9 spots happen to do that in odd duck performances, you're just shot in the foot. That's where I think people go astray on, like, that guy's highly owned, he's a star, but he's highly owned, so I can't use him. That's where people tend to go astray. The opera man of DFS. I got the cape, the little hanky. I think that title was taken a long time ago by our buddy Eric Lindquist across town. That is your DFS singer, your DFS crooner. Pitching spot in this one, I don't see value. I see low prices. I don't see value. 5,200, 6,000 for Ryan Nelson, 5,900, 6,300 for Colin Ray. If you're going to one of these pitchers, I think it's Colin Ray. I think that's the guy that maybe could get there. But the D-backs are a very good lineup here. They've been very productive throughout the season. We saw them obviously ruin Corbin Burns' night. And even in his diminished form, Corbin Burns is like up here, and Colin Ray is somewhere down here where you guys couldn't see my hand off camera. Not an overly talented pitcher, 21.6% strikeouts, a 4.34 xFIP, a 4.71 ERA, allowing a ton of power with a 43.9% hard hit rate, 90.4 miles an hour average exit velo. There's just a ton of upside on the Diamondback side of things. It's the same going the other way. Ryan Nelson, 14 starts, 71 and a third, 14.7% strikeout rate, a 5.14 xFIP, a 5.30 ERA. Brandon Pfaadt was actually worse than this and got himself sent down, and they said, let's keep Ryan Nelson here. That's how bad Pfaadt was. A guy who's supposed to be a premium prospect for them and pitching all year. So Nelson's here, but he's not been effective really at all this season. I see no reason to go there. I'm firing away with bats on both sides of this one. I expect I'll have a decent amount of both of these lineups. So Geraldo Perdomo, I think I hand waved them a little bit yesterday on the show, and I did that because he had that outrageous start to the season after the terrible year all year last year as a premium prospect. Got off to a great start, was like, hey, we swung it back around. Maybe he will turn into a good player. Then he kind of cooled, and now maybe he's just settling in as a good player. But I missed the on-base percentage yesterday, which I do want to swing back to. 406 on base. If he's going to be in the leadoff role and he can sustain, we probably won't sustain over 400, but if he's high threes, 375, 380, somewhere in that range, he's going to have value. He's creating runs 41% better than average on the whole, hitting 300, 5 homers, 7 stolen bases. So I didn't mean to discount the idea of Perdomo, particularly in that leadoff spot. 3,800, 2,900. That's a good buy at the leadoff spot, assuming that's where he hits. Ketel Marte having a great year, 5,000, 3,700. You can book him at second base all day. Corbin Carroll has turned himself quickly into one of the best players in the game right now. He'll see a dip at some point in this first full season in the league, but right now 304, 386, 596, a 292 ISO, a 161 WRC plus over the course of the full season. He's been one of the best players in baseball this year, undeniably so. Just outrageously talented kid. 5,700 for him, probably a little cheap on the DK slate. FanDuel's got it right at 43. You can go to Carroll all day long and figure out a way to pay for him. Christian Walker, my home run pick of the day at 14.58. He leads the entire model. He leads the Diamondbacks. Lourdes Gurriel come down a little bit in terms of the hit tool. 280, 329, 506. His hit tool wasn't the thing I was worried about. If he's hitting 280, 290, that's fine. Coming into the season, I was worried about his absence of power from last year. He only hit 5 home runs last year. He's got 11 already this year, so I'm not that concerned about that at 226 ISO. So I can roster some Lourdes Gurriel. Perdomo leading off Longoria 6. Oh, so we got this lineup. Now, maybe if I reload. Sometimes Schmebs, usually they just feed you the lineups. They pop up and you don't have to worry about it. Sometimes a reload. Yeah, there we go. Sometimes you need a reload and then they pop in. Don't know why. Because it's Fantasy Labs. I don't know why they list 70 degrees and sunny type days as dramatic rain conditions either. But we love Fantasy Labs. And we get our lineups from them. So thank you, Fantasy Labs. You've been a big, big help over time. All right, so Perdomo, Marte, Carroll, Walker, Gurriel, which is exactly where we were. $2,700 Evan Longoria. I know it's not a lefty on the mound. He excels against lefties at this point in his career, just kind of average against righties, but 2,700, 2,800. He's got 9 home runs on the season. He's got a monster 309 ISO. I'll take shots with Evan Longoria at those prices. Alec Thomas back on the big club. Moderate power, a little bit of speed. One of those type of guys. Same with Jake McCarthy. Moderate power, good speed. 14 stolen bases and 151 plate appearances for McCarthy. Hasn't been good on the whole. But I'm taking those steals. I'm taking some of his power upside at 2,800, 2,600. I hope we start to get less popular once we reach this portion of the lineup, which I think is reasonable to expect. There are some good values here. Carson Kelly isn't included in that list necessarily, but these 3 guys, I like those values. I like to mix and match those guys with the top end here. I like the top end quite a bit, the top 5 hitters there. Brewers side of things, Christian Yelich, Jesse Winker. Do we have this one? We do. Christian Yelich, William Contreras. Jesse Winker drops down to 5th in the confirmed lineup here. Pop this in for you guys. So Yelich, I think I touched on it yesterday. I know I wrote about it. I think I mentioned it on the show. This is the critical factor for Christian Yelich. If he is elevating the ball, he goes back to not MVP level, but he's maybe a tick below a star. He's star-ish at worst. 292 plate appearances, 9 home runs, 16 stolen bases, a 120 WRC plus, only a 169 ISO. Needs more of these extra base hits and needs a few more home runs. But once he's elevating the ball at an 11.2% barrel, this is picked up by his launch angle. He always hits the ball hard. 55.1% hard hits on the season. Star power for Christian Yelich, 5,300, 3,500. Left side of the plate against Ryan Nelson. I can get invested there. William Contreras, I like the contact profile, 49.3% hard hit rate, 10.7% barrels, 8 home runs on the season. Good at creating runs. Good value at catcher there. Rowdy hitting third. Good spot for Rowdy. 10.1, only guy on the team over the magic number in the home run model, which is maybe not totally accurate against Ryan Nelson. I'm not sure. Probably a little bit more home run upside than we're maybe seeing here. It's not the greatest collection of home run hitters, but with Luis Urias, we should probably see a little bit higher numbers on both of those guys. Might need an update on Ryan Nelson's bad output from this season to cover that. A couple more home runs in there. But anyway, they're a very effective option for DFS purposes. Willy Adames, tons and tons of home run power, 4,400, 2,900 at shortstop, hitting cleanup today. Winker's been atrocious, but he only cost 2,700, 2,200. Hits from the left side of power, hit from the left side of the plate, at one point hit for power. I don't believe anymore. I think I've quit these. I still believe, but I still kind of want to throw the dart, if that makes sense. I kind of want to throw the dart with my eyes closed, expecting to miss the board, that kind of a play. 2,200, it's just too good a price, hitting fifth behind these guys now instead of ahead of them. Maybe it gives them a little bump. Maybe it takes the pressure off. I don't know what it is with Winker. I like to think he figures it out second half. I like to think I'll be ahead of the curve because I will probably get him here. Brian Anderson, Luis Urias, a little bit of power from the right side of the plate. I like Urias, cheap prices, multi-position eligible, 3 positions on FanDuel. Good amount of power in his bat over time. Perkins, dead minimum on DK. You can definitely get there, former second-round pick. 2 home runs in 40 plate appearances this season, 200 ISO, 109 WRC+. plus. Tiny, microscopic, irrelevant sample there. But a guy who at least has shown us that he can do it for the minimum. So we can get to that. Joey Weimer, 10 home runs, 10 stolen bases on the season, 195 ISO. From the bottom of the lineup basically every day. 2,800, 2,700, never gets all that much ownership. You can go to Weimer at the bottom of the lineup. Bats in this one, no pitching. Skip the game. Rangers and the White Sox. We've got lineups for this one. Rangers lineup looks basically as we anticipated. Drop it in here. We've got definitely some pitching to talk about in this one, so I'll do that while I grab these lineups. Dylan Cease, I think I'm interested in just because of the price and what he's done in the past. Plus, I don't think he's been egregiously bad this season by any means. I think he's had his moments of a couple of mistakes, a little bit of lapses in quality, and the strikeouts are definitely down over time. So he's not pitching like Dylan Cease, but I also don't think he's pitching like whatever that guy's name was, Noah Davis. I think he's just kind of an effective starter right now with some strikeout upside. 4.31 ERA is fine. 4.17 xFIP is fine. It's not great. It's not elite. It's around league average, maybe a little bit higher than league average. 26.2% strikeouts is still above league average. 10.7% walks is worse than average. Too much contact, too much exit velocity, too many hard hits. Probably still too many barrels. But at 7,700, 8,600 for a guy who just last year struck out 30.4%, just the year before struck out 31.9%, was very good at limiting hard hits. Not as much this year, but last year. I can take some shares of Dylan Cease. I just wish it wasn't the Texas Rangers on the other side of the equation. That's the problem. But the Rangers were somewhat limited in their implied run total. So I think Vegas is giving it a little bit of a shot there. I don't love it for Cease. It doesn't shine through really in the projections. 25-ish for these prices, though. I can take that with the idea of some strikeout upside. He finds a handful more strikeouts than he's been getting this year. Goes back to that old form. And suddenly we could have a competitive starter for a discount. He's not far removed from being priced right up with the Coles of the world. So I think there's value there, or the Evaldis of the world, I should say. 11-1 for Nate Eovaldi on both sites. It makes sense. He's been dynamite this year. 93 and 2/3 in 14 starts, giving you tremendous depth every time out. 25.5% strikeout rate, a 5.3% walk rate. So he's increased his strikeouts a little bit year over year by 3 points. He's got walks basically in line with expectations. He's cut his xFIP by a little bit. He's cut his ERA by a lot. Pitching really well here. So definitely going to get involved with some Eovaldi. He's going up against a White Sox lineup that has underperformed on the whole. I still believe in a lot of the talents in this lineup, but especially not with no Lou Bob in there. That's a big downgrade. So Benny, Andrew Vaughn, Eloy Jimenez, Jake Berger, Gavin Sheets. You can take that as a top 5 if you're going to White Sox here and work in maybe some shares of Jasmani Grandal and Clint Frazier if you get carried away with it. But it's not great without Lou Bob in there. They need that bat. I know Berger's got 16 home runs. I don't fully believe. I think he's Rooker-ish. Maybe a little bit better than Rooker. A little bit more reliable, but Rooker-ish. Rooker-esque. Rooker-light. Rooker-like. Gavin Sheets, dead minimum price on DK, at least is nice. $2,000. $2,400 on FanDuel. First and outfield on FanDuel. Some idea of power there. 8 home runs from the left side and 170 plate appearances. 185 ISO. Benny's been underperforming, and he's basically a slap hitter at this point. Andrew Vaughn hasn't really delivered a ton of power. 10 homers, 191 ISO. Coming around a little bit. The 48.8% hard hits is good. The run creation's been okay. Eloy's just missed too much time. Good power hitter when he's in the lineup. 8 homers and 176 plate appearances, a 190 ISO, 49.6% on the hard hits, 11.8% on the barrels. But it's been not great in Chicago. Tim Anderson out of the lineup with an injury and has just underperformed badly all season. No, he missed time in the beginning of the year. So no Timmy, no Luis Robert. It's not great in Chicago right now. Bump to Eovaldi, who was already our highest projected pitcher. It's a not insignificant bump to Eovaldi. I don't want to get carried away and say that he's going to go from here to 50 plus in a projection sense. But does he have a better shot at a 50 plus start now in FanDuel scoring? Yes, he does. So I like the spot for Eovaldi quite a bit. I'm going to get a lot of it. I'm hoping the prices keep him down a little bit. It's definitely an aggressive price. Oh, it's 11,000, not 11.1 on FanDuel. I think I said 11.1 on both sites. So a lot of Eovaldi, limited exposure to the White Sox now. The hitter that I wanted the most in the White Sox lineup is not going to be playing today. I want them less. Top 5 for me with a smattering of Grandal and Frazier if you're building a lot, like I said. On the other side, you can definitely roster some Rangers against these here. 10 home runs each for Semien and Seager off the top. Very expensive, but very good duo up top. You take one, you leave the other one. You take them both, fill out your middle infield. There's so many ways to combine those guys with other hitters in this lineup who are cheap, who provide a ton of value and upside. A guy I'm thinking of in that vein is Ezekiel Duran. 2,700, 3,000. Multi-position eligible for Ezekiel Duran. 7th hitter. 192 plate appearances, 313, 359, 520, 207 ISO, 8 home runs, 143 WRC plus. I do not know why he is only priced at 2,700, 3,000. I guess maybe they figured relegated further back in the lineup, not necessarily playing every day. That's a bargain. That is an absolute bargain. Bolt him on with the rest of these guys. They're 1 through 6 is dynamite basically every day. Josh Young hitting 3rd today is an interesting spot for Josh Young. Nathaniel Lowe drops to 5th. Stays in the lineup, but drops to 5th. You get tons of value from the left side of the plate out of Lowe. He's always low priced. Josh Young is only 4,500, 3,400 despite the outrageous season he's having. He's tied with Adolis Garcia with 15 home runs for the team lead on the highest scoring team in baseball. He's creating runs 34% better than average. I don't really get why he's 45, 34, but if he is, I'll take it. Jonah Heim, good power hitting catcher. Travis Jankowski, effective enough, 2,500 on both sites. Good hit tool, decent speed, 293 batting average, 381 on base, 8 stolen bases. Doesn't hit for any power, but I don't really care about that at this point in the lineup. I'll take the wraparound play. 2,500 if you use him instead of one of the top 2 guys there. So you grab like a Jankowski, and by the same token, Leody Taveras, who will be more popular because he's better in that role. But either one of these guys in place of one of these guys, it's uncomfortable to do that. You're leaving a star on the table, but you just bolt this guy on instead of this guy with these guys, just as a differentiator. Taveras can get on base, 356. He can steal you a base. He's got 8 home runs on the season. He's got 7 stolen bases on the season. I know he's not Marcus Semien, but as a guy who can DFS-wise be effective for half the price, offset some popularity, you can build a Rangers stack that has 4 of the 5 same hitters, plus Leody Taveras instead of Marcus Semien. You're saving a ton of money. You're going in a different direction than most of the field. Most of the people who build Rangers stacks are focused right here. So I think there's value at the bottom of this lineup pretty much every day. I've been using it quite a bit. So yeah, we covered this one. A ton of interest in Eovaldi, some interest in Cease for value. I think there's big time value potential there. Definitely interested in the Rangers, moderate interest in the White Sox. 3 games to go. It's 5:30. Let's get this done. Has he talked D-backs yet? He has not, but he will in a moment. Oh, no, wait. We did. We did talk D-backs. This is how much goes on during this show. D-backs game going backward in time for Hunter Bone because we need to pick up time. So by going backward in time, we also gain time. I don't think that's how that works. Anyway, real quick. I like the bats on both sides in this one. I like the Diamondbacks bats better than the Brewers bats, just by a little bit. But I like both bats. If you're going to Diamondbacks, that 1 through 6 is dynamite. Evan Longoria is probably going to be lower owned than he should be, and there's power in that bat at 2,700, 2,800. And then I think both Alec Thomas and Jake McCarthy are viable as bolt-on pieces to the end of a stack or as wraparound plays. Low end, I mean, they're down there. They're hitting 205 and 235, 260, 300 on base percentage, but good speed, moderate amount of pop, both on the left side of the plate going up against Colin Ray. So I think both of those guys are effective in stacks. And Carson Kelly, if you're playing on DK, is an effective enough catcher. Hasn't been good over 15 plate appearances, but don't sweat that. 36.8% hard hits last year. It's not like it's a good number, but he can put bat on ball for that price if you need a cheap catcher. But really, for me, it's 1 through 6, and then some Thomas and some McCarthy. And then, the Brewer side, to reiterate, Yelich, Contreras, Tellez, Adames, minor shares of Winker because he's struggling so bad. More interest in like the Urias, maybe Blake Perkins, maybe Joey Weimer, part of that lineup from the bottom end for very cheap prices. And now we're back. Hey now. All right. Framber Valdez is one of the best pitchers in baseball. For DFS purposes, he is extremely good at limiting the opposing team. He just takes the top off of power. I said this a little bit about Hunter Brown yesterday, and I compared him to Framber Valdez and said he doesn't do it as well as Framber does. And then he went out and got completely obliterated by the goddamn Mets. So that was a problem because it resulted in me having like no Mets. But Framber is much better at doing that and has done it over a significant amount of time. Oh, my ad blocked. I don't know what the hell just happened there. I assume I'm still on YouTube. Something just got blocked as popped up a big ad blocker thing for me. I thought the whole world just crashed, but I think we're still here. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Somebody confirm that in the chat for me. I'm just going to keep on talking because we need to make up this time. So Framber's excellent. He only costs 10.2 on DK. That's a bit of a discount. 10.9 on FanDuel. You're paying full freight, but you're getting an excellent option. 2.27 ERA, 2.90 xFIP, 5.5% walk rate, 26.5% strikeout rate. Has taken 3 points off his walk rate year over year, added them to the strikeout rate year over year. Gives you excellent depth every time out. 91 innings, 14 starts. Love me some Framber on this slate. I will take my shots against the Mets. Very limited interest in the Mets, given his ability to limit home runs. Maybe they string together some hits. Maybe one of them is able to get it over the wall. I don't know if Francisco Alvarez is playing today. I think he took a bump. Is he in the lineup? He is in the lineup. All right, good. So the confirmed version of the lineup, let me drop this in. So it's very limited interest in the Mets side of things. And it's pretty limited interest in the Astros side of things with the bats as well. In the Mets lineup, the confirmed version basically looks exactly like we thought it would. Tommy Pham hitting 5th. Mix and match play as a veteran for cheap prices, hitting 5th. He's having an okay season. 7 home runs, 6 stolen bases, 124 WRC plus, 237 ISO, and 158 plate appearances. Those are Tommy Pham, kind of returning to Tommy Pham type production. 15.9% barrels, 52.3% hard hits. He just doesn't get enough plate appearances to be fully reliable play every day. But when he's in the lineup, you can go there. It's just a terrible spot against Valdez. Obviously, Pete Alonso. Obviously, Francisco Alvarez, Francisco Lindor. Nimmo and Marte, effective enough up top. Nimmo, a good leadoff hitter. Sturdy 47.1% hard hits for Nimmo, 7 home runs. Great on base percentage, good correlated scoring play. Marte has his warts, hits for a minor amount of power when he's going right. Has not really done that this year. 19 stolen bases is good. Still has blazing speed, but just wasn't getting on base early in the season. Lindor struggling in the triple slash, but the power's there. McNeil, Kana, Escobar at the bottom of the lineup. McNeil's a slap hitter, needs his friends to help him score runs. Kana, similar to Pham. It's kind of an effective enough veteran for price. Not been great this season. 104 WRC plus, 108 WRC plus, 5 homers, 4 stolen bases. At price, it's fine to go to in limited doses if you're going to a bunch of Mets, but I just wouldn't go to a bunch of Mets in this spot. Eduardo Escobar, similar idea of, effective enough veteran against the lefty in this spot from the bottom of the lineup, though. I don't think I need that. The Astros going up against Justin Verlander, who returns to Houston at 7,300, 8,200. Very different prices than what he left Houston at. We got there with Max Scherzer last night. We're going to try and do it again with Justin Verlander tonight at probably a lot lower ownership for the same reasons. I think I am. 7,300. Big time bargain for Justin Verlander. 8,200. Big time bargain for Justin Verlander. His projection, it carries through. I told you guys, I fed a little bit more of this year into the projection model, and it spit back still a good projection on Verlander for me. It's still Justin Verlander. He's not the Justin Verlander he once was. He's probably not even the guy he was last year. We've seen a definite downturn here. But Houston's totaled at just 4.09 runs, or at least when I wrote the article, that's where they were. Maybe they came up by, a quarter of a run. But that's for a reason. He is still a very talented guy. He's only really had 3 really bad starts. He just hasn't had any outrageously good starts. So it's 3 really bad starts, a couple of average-ish kind of starts. But if we want to play the narrative game, what better opportunity could we find in all of narrative land than Justin Verlander returning to Houston at low ownership, I think, and cheap prices against an Astros team with no Jordan Alvarez that's kind of scuffling, that's really struggling for quality this year. There's upside. There's got to be upside. It could completely go bust. I'm happy to ride that ship to the bottom with Justin Verlander. At these prices, I can't say no. I had a bunch of Max. It worked out. I'll have a bunch of Verlander. I hope it works out. Going up against an Astros team that's decent at limiting strikeouts, but there are effective strikeouts in the back of this lineup. 3 guys down there, 27, 27, 31. If he can cruise through the front, get to this middle and the back end, there's a lot of strikeouts there for him. Jose Abreu is dramatically underperformed this year. This is not the Jose Abreu of old. Pena's not been good. Jokes is good in spots. Myers is good in spots. They're cheap value guys. Martin Maldonado is non-threatening. Can bend a slate with one of those weird 1% owned home runs from time to time, but we're not worried about that. Jainer Diaz has been really good. He's hitting cleanup today. 3,300, 2,500. That's a nice piece of value if you're looking for a catcher on DK. I don't know how many shots I would take against Justin Verlander with the kid, but at least he's been effective. 118 plate appearances, 273, 288, 509. On base needs to come up, but he's hitting for power. 236 ISO, 6 home runs in the small sample, 13.8% barrels, 46.8% hard hits. You guys know the names Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, Kyle Tucker. Don't need to sell those guys to anybody, but Bregman and Tucker have underperformed on the season. Tucker, still expensive, appropriately priced for where he's at right now. Still producing at 281, 355, 445 overall, 122 WRC plus, 9 home runs, 13 stolen bases. All of this will probably look fine by the end of the season, but he's definitely in a dip. He's definitely not creating runs as aggressively as he did last year. Definitely not hitting for the ISO that he used to. So it's a bit of a dip for Kyle Tucker, and it's not entirely just because Jordan's not there to protect him, because he was doing this earlier in the season. This isn't new. Alex Bregman, just kind of on the back end of the career, I think. Probably going to still hit for power. We might even see power come up as he starts to think less about hitting for average, worrying about any of that, and just becomes more of a free swinger power hitter. So maybe the home runs spike a little bit. 9 home runs is fine. 144 ISO isn't great, though, from what this guy once was. 4,800, 3,100, probably appropriately priced at third base. You can take some Astro shots. Verlander's not been good. Verlander's been struggling. 45.5% hard hits, 91.3 miles an hour of average exit velo, 3.76% home run rate. I know Verlander's not been good. I'm more interested in Verlander at these prices than I am in any of these Astros bats or the Astros stack. By the way, we always want to be stacking. Somebody asked in Discord earlier, and the way that the question was phrased, I wasn't sure if they were asking, would I rather stack or stack and go to some value. It was a question about something else, but it indicated that maybe they weren't necessarily thinking of always be stacking. DK, I would always be looking for 5-man, and then I think 3 independent players play over there is fine. But I'm more inclined to go 5-3, 5-2-1, something like that. FanDuel, where their correlated scoring is even more important, I am basically exclusively looking to go 4-4 or 4-3-1. So I'm always building 2 stacks. I'm not grabbing one of these teams and then grabbing a bunch of one-offs. Some people approach it that way, and it can be effective if you drill all 4 of those one-offs. But just the rising tide concept, especially on FanDuel, I'm just looking for 2 full stacks or a 4-3-1. All right, let's move on. 2 games to go. So that one, enthusiasm about Fromber, enthusiasm about Verlander at price with, some hesitation around the massive struggles over 8 starts this year. Mets bats, meh. Astros bats, a little bit better than meh. Maybe like, reluctant on both sides, though. Pods. We talked about Fernando Tatis. 14.19 in the home run model for whoever's looking to roster Fernando. That's, I believe, the number 2 overall mark for a home run today. Monster projections. Dude's outrageous. 14 home runs, 12 stolen bases, creating runs 47% better than average over 240 plate appearances. There's nothing bad to say about Tatis. I know he cheated. I know he's got that scandal on his record, but dude is an outrageous talent. Turned himself immediately into one of the best defensive outfielders in the game, too, by the way. If you haven't seen any of his lasers throwing guys out, it's pretty impressive. Juan Soto, 5,900, 3,500. Awesome player. 2 more home runs last night. 228 on the ISO, 147 WRC plus. Matches the output from Tatis. 256. The hit tool will probably come back up, but it's definitely spiked since earlier in the season when he was hitting in the low 2s, and last season he was hitting his hit tool kind of abandoned him. He strikes out more than he used to, but he still walks at that 20% rate, gets on base at a crazy clip. This 400 plus on base, I forget who it was about that I said he won't maintain a 400 plus. Juan Soto is going to maintain a 400 plus. He's done it a couple times in his career. Excellent player. I will always go to Juan Soto when I'm going to Padres. Underpriced Manny Machado, underpriced Xander Bogaerts are priority plays when you're going to Padres. Jake Cronenworth is a bolt-on guy. He's my last favorite option. Gary goes with these guys. So these guys and Gary, and then it's Cronenworth as the bolt-on. If you're going to 30 shares of Padres, you obviously want to work in some Matt Carpenter, Ha-Seong Kim, Trent Grisham. I don't know if this lineup's confirmed. Doesn't look like it. So you obviously want to work in some of the mix and match, floats them from the bottom of the lineup here, but they're not good. They're at the bottom of this lineup for a reason, and this is a top-heavy team because specifically those guys are not very good. So for me, it's 1 through 6 with more priority on Gary than on Cronenworth. Cronenworth's a good player. He just hasn't been as effective as in years past. 7 homers on the season, only a 91 WRC plus, not getting on base effectively, not hitting for average. If you look at Cronenworth last year, 240 is a little bit better of an average. 333 better on the on base. 17 home runs though. 110 WRC plus was better the year before that. So not the effective correlation play that he's been over time, but any given slate could definitely be that and is priced in that any given slate kind of range at 45-28. Multi-position on FanDuel, first base, second base. Giants side going up against Seth Lugo. I didn't really talk about DeSclafani. DeSclafani, league average type of variety, can give you effective innings, 79 and a third in 14 starts, only 18% strikeouts, a 5.2% walk rate. I would look to DeSclafani to give you that, like at 67 on DK, that effective 6 innings, maybe a shot at a win, but probably not type of a performance, maybe a few strikeouts, but definite risk involved in the play and the Padres hanging 5 runs or more on him. So I don't love the DeSclafani spot, even at price 6,700, 7,400. I wish he had strikeout upside beyond what he's given us this year. So I don't love that play. Same side of or the other side of the same equation. I don't love the Seth Lugo play just because I don't think he's going to pitch a full start. Just coming back off the IL, was pitching effectively early in the season. 4.10 ERA, 3.87 xFIP, 21.3% strikeouts, going up against a somewhat free swinging Giants lineup. I think there could have been value there at 75, 76, but I just think on a lack of innings, he's probably off the board. Excuse me. So Pods bats for sure, and then the Giants bats with the idea that we'll get Lugo and then we'll probably get somebody out of the pen. I think the Giants bats are in play. It's a team that I go to a fair amount. They hit for a ton of power. They drive the ball well. They've got a bunch of interesting lefty bats in that lineup. So I really like Lamont Wade, Jock Peterson, Michael Conforto, and Michael Yastrzemski. Did you see Yaz yesterday walk the game off, hitting the ball into the bay? It was a pretty cool moment. They were making it like it was an actual record on one of the MLB shows this morning. And they were like, oh, only the third guy to do something. Come back after the break and find out what it was. And he was the third guy ever to walk off a game by hitting the ball into the bay. Hyper-specific, Giants-oriented baseball stat, but now I know it, and now you know it, thanks to the MLB Network. So, yeah, we're going Wade, we're going Peterson, Conforto, Yaz. Estrada is a great little bolt-on in the middle of that. He's not expensive enough on FanDuel at 35 if they're going to give him multi-position. Second base and shortstop over there. Second base only for 54 on DK. That's fine. But with his counting stats, 9 home runs, 17 stolen bases, with his ability to correlate with all these other players around, if you're going to give me the ability to click him into multiple positions, he should probably be a couple $100 more. Luis Matos, premium outfield prospect. I think I hand-waved him a little bit yesterday too, just not thinking about who he was in terms of the plate appearances. But a high-end kid. Highly regarded outfield prospect, 3,000, 2,500. I think there's definite value in Luis Matos. Crawford, Bailey, VR, whatever you get on the back end, or you kind of mix and match parts in the back end of the Giants lineup typically. You probably get Crawford, so David VR, productive guy, 2 years ago? Was that last year or was that 2 years ago? 9 home runs and 181 plate appearances. It was last year. So that little outburst of power last year kind of just has me somewhat interested in the fact that he's 2,400, 2,000. Dead minimum on FanDuel, third base and second base. If I'm building a bunch of Giant stacks, I think David VR belongs in at least a solid handful of them, with the idea that he's a decent striker of the baseball. 13% barrels in 117 plate appearances this year, 5 home runs in 117. So what was it? It was 9 in whatever I said. So we're basically over halfway there. You can get a little value out of David VR. Let's not go nuts. Was that it? Was that the last game? Nope. One more. All right, so that one was neither pitcher. Although if you want to go to DeSclafani for value on DK, it's fine. It's okay. It's not good. It's fine. That important difference in life. And then Pods bats, totally fine on the top 6. Giants bats, basically at least 1 through 6, with some interest in the bottom end, especially since we're probably getting a bullpen game. All right, we talked about this a little bit when somebody asked about it in terms of the players, in terms of the matchups with Clay Kershaw on the mound. Obviously, you've got extreme talent in the Angels lineup around Trout and Ohtani, and then you've got a collection of good right-handed power hitters. Drury and Renfroe most especially, but also Taylor Ward. Chad Wallach has struck the ball very well for a cheap right-handed catcher this year. 87 plate appearances. Wallach's got 6 home runs, a 15.1% barrel rate. It probably won't last. He's not going to finish the season with like 30 home runs. Oh, we do have the confirmed lineup. Wallach is in it. All right, good. I didn't just waste 30 seconds. So Wallach's in the lineup. He's hitting another spot down. Grab that. All right, so Ward, Ohtani, Trout, Drury, Renfroe, everything I said is fine. Kevin Padlo drops into the lineup at the dead minimum on DK. Not available on the FanDuel slate. What do I know about Padlo? What do I know? I know how to type his name into Fangraphs so I can remind myself who the hell this kid is. Padlo is 26. Not really much of a prospect. 17th ranked organizationally. That's probably an old number. Mid-range power. 12 home runs, 16 home runs. Goes back to 2014 in the Colorado system. Haven't gotten much from him in the past couple of years in the minors. Not going to really sweat the Kevin Padlo spot here. So I'm going the back end of the lineup here. I'm interested in Wallach. Maybe some shares of Renifo as a guy who can help me offset some positions, offset some price. Hasn't really delivered for us this year, but hit 17 home runs and 511 plate appearances last year. So I came into the year saying maybe a little bit of underappreciated quality, and maybe what it actually was a little outburst of power last year and a return to norm this year. We'll see. But he'll be in some lineups given the flexibility, the cheap pricing. So it's the top 5. It's minor shares of Wallach and Renifo if I choose to attack Clay Kershaw, which becomes the big question. I think you can do it. It's not a great spot. 10-5, 10-7, I think I'm much more interested in Clay Kershaw's strikeouts and all the upside that he provides. You can see plenty of strikeouts in this. The average is ruined because of this asshole. But there's plenty of strikeouts, 27s, 31. I'm sure Kevin Padlo's a nice guy, not an asshole. But he's an asshole for me. Ruined my strikeout average. So we're going to Clay Kershaw. 29.3% strikeout rate, 2.95 ERA, a 3.08 xFIP. He is still Clay Kershaw. The price is right. The spot is okay. If he can get through Trout and Ohtani, he can get through the rest of these guys. I've got utter faith in Clay Kershaw. And you can see he's not projected at the top of the board, by the way. There's other guys that'll probably have more of, given where he's priced. Unless he comes in at like 1% ownership. Then maybe I'll just push the Clay button a little bit more aggressively, put my thumb on that scale. This is fantastic. 14.8% swinging strikes, 31.6% barrels. Just been absolutely outrageous. So we'll get into some Angels. On the other side of this one, the Dodgers going up against Reed Detmers. Doesn't look like we've got that lineup confirmed yet. Detmers has been pretty good. 6,900, 7,200 across sites. You can see that he doesn't project well because he's facing the damn Dodgers. They don't strike out. They're really, really good at avoiding the strikeout. Look up and down that lineup. You can see a lot of numbers in the teens with some low teens numbers in there from some critical players. They're very, very, very good. They're excellent at hitting for power. They're excellent at hitting left-handed pitchers for power. They're excellent for run creation. I think most of this takes Detmers mostly off the board for me. I love the price. I love the idea of getting a 27% strikeout rate guy pushing 28%. who doesn't give up a ton of power, who limits barrels, who limits home run upside. I like the idea of getting that guy, the vacuum play, at that price. But I don't like running in directly headlong into the buzzsaw that is this Dodgers lineup. They're just too good. I don't see Detmer's... The path is there, but it's really thin. It's covered in leaves and a bunch of dirt, and there's a dead deer laying on the path, and success is way the hell down there. It's a thin road to success with Detmers today. You can do it. 6,900 on DK, you can do it. 72 on FanDuel, I don't think I would. I really don't think I would. Minor upside. Talented kid. Not saying he's not. Having a good year. Not saying he's not. Just not the right spot for it. So with that in mind, I'm probably going to throw some Dodgers at him. Mookie, Freddie, Will, JD, Chris Taylor. Assuming this is the version of the lineup we get. All 5 of those guys in play for power, in play for run creation. Chris Taylor having a really weird year. 11 home runs in 180 plate appearances with a 250 ISO, 94 WRC plus though, 207, 272 on the front end of the triple slash, 13.7% barrels. This was a guy who's like more a hit to a moderate pop kind of a guy over time, get on base, help correlate scoring, plays multiple positions, utility type. It's just a weird year of output for Taylor. Johnny DeLuca, definite idea of power from the young kid. 18 plate appearances, not done much with him, but still only the min price on DK, 2,100 on the FanDuel slate. It's been a couple minutes since I looked at the... He was having a great start in the minors this year. Let me pull it up real quick since we're about to end the show. AAA this year, 4 home runs, 3 stolen bases. Oh, I'm sorry, it was a combined. That's why. Across AA and AAA. 142 plate appearances in AA, 10 home runs, 9 stolen bases this year. 80 plate appearances in AAA, 4 home runs, 3 stolen bases this year. Got the call up. So that was a pretty productive player at high levels in the minors before they called him up. Yet to do anything in the show, but dead minimum, 2,100 in the outfield to offset price, offset some popularity in that Dodgers lineup. I think I can go to some shares of him if he's in the lineup. Miguel Vargas having a nice year. Not in terms of the hit tool, but kind of has pulled together a little bit of power. Never gets ownership. Not really that expensive. So I can get to some Vargas. Rojas has been bad. Austin Barnes is like a backup catcher type. So don't really love him. Obviously the quality for this team is in the extreme upside of the 1 through 4. Plus Chris Taylor. Still no Max Muncy, I assume. Still no confirmed lineup. So I think I'm going to Dodgers here. I have respect for Detmers. I wouldn't be shocked if he limits them to a handful of runs while he's in the game, but doesn't have a good game himself. They don't have a good game. If we get one of those kind of returns, I wouldn't be totally shocked. But I will definitely be more on the Dodgers side of that equation than the Detmers side. Okay, coming up on 6 o'clock. Got to get some lineups built. Hopefully I put my placeholders in because that tournament is full. This is the pitching board. Let's talk this through real quick as a summary of the show. Arcathel's are back asking if we're playing Cease. I'm going to play him a little bit. Not like crazy, but I think his value price is enough that I think there's value there. Stephen Leibowitz, did someone say Kershaw was having lefty trouble? Not so. Not this season. Small sample, 273 OBP, 229 slugging. If I said it, I didn't mean to. I might have stumbled over saying something else. That was definitely not something I was concerned about or had even looked at, but I appreciate the numbers there, Steve. Blatant ageism, for sure. 26-year-old. Yeah, it's all ageism over here. And you guys know, it's all narratives and bias and bigotry against old people. That's how I run my streams. That's how I make my decisions. There's no stats. There's no math that goes into any of this. There's no numbers. It's all just, hey, this guy used to play here. This guy was fun. Didn't like him. Do like him. He's old. He's young. That's how we make decisions, right? All right, let's get this done. Nate Eovaldi, dynamite option at the top. You're paying through the nose for him, obviously. You're paying a high comparative price to most of these guys, obviously. You can see Clay and Fromber both down board a little bit behind some weird names as far as Aaron Savali goes, but I love that spot for Savali. Decent little projection. It's not like we're saying he's going to put up a monster game. I could easily see him paying off that salary on both sites, delivering a game kind of like what it looks like on that board. Garrett Cole, we know there's warts with the home run the home run downside. He makes mistakes from time to time, and they're loud mistakes. We know that the strikeouts have gone away a little bit this year. We know that there's whiff rate down on a bunch of his of pitches in his arsenal. I can't ignore Garrett Cole at price. against that Seattle team with all that swing and miss. Price is a little easier to ignore at 10.9 on DK, 10.6 on FanDuel. I think that's a little bit of a bargain. That's a $500 bargain when Evaldi's at 11. He's still Garrett Cole in a way, and he's pitching to around like numbers that Evaldi is. I know Evaldi's been a little bit better in the runs department, but in terms of strikeouts, it's right around the same rate. So probably a little discount there on FanDuel for Cole. It's not crazy, but I think it's there. Jordan Montgomery, love the spot for him going up against the Nats. So as you can see, we're just, all season long, we're going to be talking about targeting the Nationals, the Athletics, the Rockies, some of these shit teams. They just come up again and again and again for a good reason. I think that lends upside to Jordan Montgomery here at Price. Love the opportunity at Price. I really like the opportunity at Price for Justin Verlander. There's a lot of different directions to take your value play, especially on DK where you need one of these guys as an SP2. You can live in that range of these guys just up here as the cheapo SP2s. And then I would probably throw Ben Lively onto that pile. 7,100, great price. 8,000, great price going up against that lousy Rockies team. Ballpark's not great, but he's been good this year. There are strikeouts. It could go bust. So that's why he projects here, and that's why I would put him behind probably these guys for in that 7,000 tier on DK. But he's right up there. He's on the board for sure, and he projects like it. Mackenzie Gore, similar, but the prices are worse. Stroman I really like, probably more than this price suggests. I don't like the price on FanDuel, but I think this keeps him under-owned. So I probably have a little bit more Stroman than this price suggests. On DK, I like that value quite a bit, like we talked about. Cutter Crawford, those cheap prices. Check if before you roster him, run a quick check if there's an innings count on him, because that's the one thing I'm concerned with Crawford. I referred to it, but I didn't actually put numbers on it. Come on, Grass. Help me out. There you go. I hate when Grass lags just a little bit. And I love their site, and they're free. Or they're free with a donation. Kind of like going in a museum, right? Labs is like that suggested donation box up at the front. Graphs rather. That's kind of how they work. They run on our donations. So if you guys like what you get from me and you're looking to throw a couple bucks somebody's way before we set up any kind of subscription or anything at the site, toss a couple bucks towards Fangraphs. Those guys deserve it. They are the best in the industry. My entire model runs on it. Basically everybody in the industry runs stuff off these guys. So I was checking Cutter Crawford's innings over the last 3 outings. 4 innings last time out, 3 innings, all in a starting role. Struck out 5 the last time out against these same Rockies. I hadn't noticed that. Oh, I'm sorry. He's not facing the Rockies. He's facing the Twins. I'm getting tired. Getting toward the end of the show. He's facing the Twins. It's not a bad team upside. It's a strikeout based upside because they got a 30% strikeout rate in that confirmed lineup. So my point was, I don't know if we're getting 5 out of them, but even if we get 4 out of them with a handful of strikeouts at these prices, there's enough there that maybe get away with it. It's not great. I wish we could say for sure that he was going to go 5. Cease, minor shares, everybody below this, I don't really need. Lugo, we talked about, short start. These guys are bad. Detmers, I just think, is in a terrible matchup. Pitcher I do like. Disclafani, similar kind of a thing with lower end. He's somebody I think is an average pitcher in a terrible spot. Oviedo could give you something, but I think we've got so much better values that you don't really need it. Waldichuk probably shouldn't be this highly projected. Ober, fine, but mispriced at 96, 92 comparative to everybody else on the slate. Like, I know the matchup is a little better for Ober, but he probably shouldn't be that much more expensive, $1,000 more expensive than Dylan Cease on FanDuel, that much more, $1,500 more on DK. That's probably a little bit misaligned, given that Cease has struck out more than 30% of hitters over the last 2 years. Anyway, I think that's where we're at, gang. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Appreciate everything you guys do to help me out here. Archithelza says he thinks he's going to find the extra 200 and go with Savali. I love the Savali spot today. I really do. I'll have a fair amount of Savali here. We'll either celebrate together or we'll hang out at the bottom of the sea when the ship sinks together. Votto, Benson, Jones, McMahon, plus 1.5 bases parlay, plus 2,300. I like that. Yeah, I like that. That works. All right, guys. I'm going to punch out. I got to get some lineups built. It's 6 o'clock. We've been doing this for 2 hours. Love it. Appreciate everybody coming to hang out with me. Like, subscribe. Roto Scouts is the site. Ton of free content up there. Stacks board. All that good stuff is up there. The full article's up there. Follow it on Twitter. And with that, I'm out of here. See you, gang.